Welcome to Sis Flicks, the podcast where we won't judge you for talking through the movie. Sis Flicks are the movies you laugh at, yearn for, and overanalyze with your girls, significant others, and now us.
We are your hosts,
Paola
and Nadhya, two sisters and designers who discuss chick flicks we hate to love,
tropes we love to hate,
and all of the aesthetic choices in between. Join us as we break down our favorite movies together.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
I have a question for you.
Whatever can it be?
Where the fuck were you in 1999, 26 years ago?
Bitch, I was 6 goddamn years old.
I'll tell you where you were. You were with me in our shared bedroom in Washington Heights watching Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century, and crying about a robot in The Iron Giant.
Can I just say, Xenon Girl of the 21st Century, I had such a little teeny tiny crush on the boy that ends up being her boyfriend in that movie, and that should have told me, like, I know, who did it? No, that's fair.
Who did it? Yeah.
But one of us went on to marry someone white and one of us didn't. And and I think that's significant.
That's what solidified it. I remember 99 so distinctly for me as like musical milestone. Mm-hmm. However, when it came to movies, 1999 was the year of the teenage rom-com. We had Never Been Kissed, Drive Me Crazy, a personal favorite, She's All That,
a personal favorite,
Cruel Intentions, a fave, not necessarily a rom-com.
Yeah. Ooh.
Notting Hill, not a teenage rom-com,
but an iconic one.
Iconic rom-com. The Best Man, a bit of calm in the rom.
More dram and calm.
Still another elite classic. And 10 Things I Hate About You, which we're covering today.
You guys did us a solid and requested this movie a lot. We ran like a poll in our Instagram stories a little while back, and we were just like, what movies do you guys want us to cover? And we got so much love for this movie specifically. It was our number one request. It was the first movie that we wanted to cover in 2025, a year that I don't even want to talk about the quality of, even though we're just 2 weeks into January.
Oh, God. What a year it's
been.
This month has been.
But we wanted to open up after coming out of Heartstopper. We were like, all right, 10 Things I Hate About You. Perfect. Kind of bridging the gap. High school, rom-com, 90s. Like, dog, we have a lot to say about this movie. It's hard to talk about teenage rom-coms without talking about John Hughes and without talking about the 80s. The 80s really was this entire era of movies geared towards teenagers.
Well, I think you can say that this specific era that we're talking about is kind of the resurgence of
the teen rom-com or the teen comedy.
Exactly.
Yeah, the mid to late 90s, as Paola mentioned, with all the movies that she listed, really like exploded with these teen comedies, whether they were romantic comedies or whether they were like douchey bro movies or whatever. That's really when we got like another fresh wave of this type of movie. And that wave pretty much like crested and dissipated in the 2010s. Like now I think the media environment is like a little bit too fractured for these movies to become a big cultural moment. 10 Things I Hate About You, we had 150 people in our poll just like, oh fuck, we love this movie, we want to see it.
Not see it, us talk about it.
We want you guys to talk about it. This was a big cultural moment. This movie was number 2 at the box office, behind The Matrix. A teen rom-com was number 2 at the box office, behind The Matrix. A teen rom-com from a first-time director, from first-time screenwriting duo. You're not going to get that kind of investment these days in pretty much anything.
Well, you're also talking about a time where teenagers were out and about.
Yeah, when movies were like, not $50 fucking dollars.
Exactly. You can go to the movies for $20 with a date, with a friend. You get what I'm saying? And that's what you did as a teenager.
With your little sister.
That was your Friday
when you want to
night.
Get out of your house.
Exactly. Today, you're spending $50 cheaply, like sharing popcorn or not even.
Smuggling
like $50,
snacks.
I feel smuggling and snacks.
Yeah.
If you want to go to the movies, like on a nice day, it's $100.
Yeah.
For 2. It's not the same anymore. And you rather Netflix and chill.
I definitely think that watching this movie, among many thoughts that I had, I think watching it made me super nostalgic for a time that was like pre-cell phone, a time that was like a little bit pre-internet adjacent because it's 1999. This is kind of a upper middle class, more affluent area. You can assume that they have computers, access to computers, but they're not like going home to get on the computer. They're not basing their lives around their tech in the way that started when we were growing up.
That's true. I guess now that I'm thinking back on it, I don't think I saw a device at all.
Barely a TV. Whereas obviously like tech today, it's like it'd be weird if I made a movie about teenagers and they weren't on their phones all the time. It's weird if you make a movie about adults and they're not on their phones all the time today. Like that's just not realistic. It makes me nostalgic for that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know that this movie made me nostalgic at all, honestly.
Let's go.
As I was watching it, I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm glad we're not in the 90s anymore. So.
That's like when white people are like, oh, the 50s, like things were just so much simpler, and then you and I are like, I don't know. You mean pre-civil rights movement? Is that what you mean? Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, no, the things I like about this movie, none of it revolve around it being from the 90s.
That's fair.
Nadhya, when was the first time you saw 10 Things I Hate About You?
Genuinely, truly?
Yeah.
Last weekend.
The first time?
That I remember watching it top to bottom, beginning to end, yes.
You don't remember, like, having seen it before?
Mm-mm.
That's crazy. So it was just kind of canon? You had no idea the specific, nothing?
I knew a couple of the big scenes, the Heath Ledger serenading scene, the Julia Stiles reciting the poem scene, but yeah. I did not know the movie in detail. I knew who was in it because they all went on to have pretty big careers, but yeah, no, I did not know like anything meaningful about it except for the fact that it was like a Shakespeare adaptation. And yeah, I mean, I was surprised. There were lots of things about it that surprised me.
Yes, I think.
When was the first time you watched it?
So I can't pinpoint the first time that I watched 10 Things I Hate About You. For me, 10 Things I Hate About You has kind of always been around. I had to have been in my late teens, early 20s. I watched teen rom-coms like in retrospect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like later on, after they were like deemed a cult classic or something, I'm like, oh, let me see what this movie's about because apparently
it's important.
As a matter of fact, like I think I saw Brokeback Mountain before I saw 10 Things I Hate About You. That was my first Heath Ledger movie. Oh. It's still a favorite till this day. Completely rewired my brain, right? Oh. And then I kind of worked my way back from there. Saw A Knight's Tale, still a favorite till this day. And then eventually I saw 10 Things. I like him in 10 Things. I think he's the reason most people like 10 Things I Hate About You.
I agree with that. I think one of the most endearing parts of this movie is definitely Heath Ledger. I have issues with this movie, right? I'm going to say this up at the top. Paola.
Oh, no. Up at the top. Nadhya has issues.
Nadhya, notoriously meek, not opinionated, keeps her thoughts to herself. Like, no. So I can get why people love it. I can get why it's this cultural touchstone. I think watching it as an adult for the first time was my first mistake. I should have watched it as a kid. And yeah,
I think 10 Things resonates most with the people who saw it at a young age. Kind of angsty, complicated teenager feelings. It kind of addresses a lot of those. If you saw it young in the early aughts, then this movie resonated with you and you're nostalgic about it. When you watch it at a young age, a lot of the shit kind of just goes over your head and you're able to enjoy what's meant to be funny. And watching it as an adult for the first time, you're automatically like, who wrote this? This is inappropriate. When was this okay? Why are we talking about women this way?
Literally, it is like, what the fuck is this story? Like, what the fuck is anyone saying? I was watching this movie with my husband. We watched it the first time just as a clean, because usually something that Paola and I will do, especially with a movie we haven't seen in a while or ever, is we'll watch it once, just pay attention to the movie. And then the second time is when we'll like sit and take our notes, write our outlines, whatever. And that's kind of what we use to guide us when we discuss it. Yeah, we got to the end. We're both laughing. We're chilling. I was like, ooh, that was a goof, a gas. Like, what a fun, light movie. I'm like, it's not heavy. I love She's All That. That's not a movie that aged incredibly well. I love spoofs from that era. Those do not age well at all. So, like, I get it. I started watching it again to do my notes, and I was literally like, what the fuck am I watching with my eyes?
Yes. Once you're watching it with a critical eye.
No.
Then you're like, oh, that was problematic.
Okay, there was shit that I called out during the initial viewing that I was like, I don't love that, I think. But I was kind of like, whatever, right? We're looking at it as a whole. I'm not picking it apart yet. And then once I started picking it apart, I was like, oh, it's worse than I thought. So I'm not here to like make people feel weird or bad for loving this movie. To the contrary. But does it hold up? I don't know, baby. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I think there's some things that do and there's some things that don't. I think that's an expectation with any 90s movie that you would put on today.
At the time of recording, we're recording this on the 13th, Paola posted to our Instagram stories, Sis Flicks Podcast, what do you guys love about 10 Things I Hate About You? That's going to be the first movie we cover in 2025. And we got a lot of really awesome responses from you guys. So we're going to read some of them out.
No dislikes. Everyone's very hype. And
I'm afraid. I'm shaking in my boots.
And loves this movie. I'm like, oh, what do you love? Hate. And people are like, no hate.
They're like, hate where?
Love. Granted, I don't hate this movie either. I can't hate but
and I don't hate it. So yeah, a couple of great responses we got from you guys is like, nostalgia and the soundtrack. The soundtrack is awesome. Totally agree with that. The fact that it's a Shakespeare adaptation and that Heath Ledger plays the main character. So obviously, super fun.
So nostalgia, Heath Ledger.
Nostalgia,
check,
Heath Ledger,
check,
music.
soundtrack.
Everything is perfect. The cast, the crew, locations, the costumes. I love the costumes. Like, I'm here and there, everywhere for these costumes. I like the cast. I think very capable cast. I'm sure the crew is great. The locations I do really love. We got the chemistry between the characters. Great. Heath Ledger is so good in this movie. Agree. The poem, the dance down the bleachers, like Heath Ledger's scene.
Yep.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Iconic. Precious baby child.
We got It's a Classic, Nothing to Hate. A great movie to rewatch countless times. All right.
You know what? I will rewatch it every time.
I'm not saying that I won't.
I didn't say you did.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that I will.
I'm pre-defensive. No, I'm pre...
What are you defensive against?
I'm recording this hiding behind a shield, and the shield is my microphone. No, like, I just have a lot of thoughts. We have It's a Classic and just cheesy enough. Respect.
True.
It was filmed in the city I live in, Tacoma, Washington. That's so fun. Hey. I love that. It's also
fucking beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Damn.
Fucking gorgeous.
You get
city.
to drive past this body of water every day and just...
Such a generic storyline, but something about it makes it stand out. Someone said, love everything. Someone said, I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all. Ooh. Thank you guys so much for giving us your thoughts. We'll also repost those to our stories at some point this week, but clearly this is a universally well-loved movie. So can't wait to talk about it. Maybe by the end, maybe I'll be converted. Maybe I'll universally love it and have no issues with it. We'll see.
I mean, you don't need to not have issues with it to love it.
I know. So let's get into some of the fucking background of this movie, dog.
Let's get into it.
Paola, when was this movie released? I don't think you said the year enough.
Oh my God, you want me to say it again? It was released in 1999. Do you know what 1999 was? 26 fucking years ago.
The fact that that's like a year that I remember being alive for, I don't like that at all.
You know what else came out in 1999? Mary-Kate and Ashley's Trip to Paris.
Oh my God. What year did Billboard Dad come out?
1998.
Billboard Dad was my shit.
That was my shit.
Yeah, so this movie was released in 1999. It was directed by Gil Younger, and it seems like this was his first feature film. He has gone on to like still have a career in film, directing film, TV, but 10 Things I Hate About You seems to be his most well-loved work. The screenplay is by a duo, Karen McCullough and Kristen Smith, and this is their first ever screenplay to be made into a movie.
And they went on to do Legally Blonde, Ella Enchanted, She's the Man. I mean, this is a great start.
I was going to say, because obviously Legally Blonde is iconic. She's the Man is, I think for like more my
another cult
generation,
classic.
It is a classic. And as we have already mentioned a handful of times, this movie is based on source material by William Shakespeare, the bard himself. It is based on his play, The Taming of the Shrew.
Written in the 1590s. And look, hundreds of years later, staying relevant. Look at you, Shakespeare.
His work endures.
This movie is starring Julia Stiles as Kat Stratford, Heath Ledger as Patrick Verona. This was his first American movie role. But Americans might not know, this was his 5th movie role overall. He did 4 other movies in Australia before he hit it in the American box office. Larissa Oleynik as Bianca Stratford. The precious, adorable baby child that is Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Cameron James. I loved him.
The sweetest
here.
little bean.
Like, on the rewatch, I was like, oh my God, he was actually adorable.
He was such a cutie.
David Krumholtz as Michael Ekman. Andrew Keegan as Joey Donner, and Larry Miller. Most of our generations know Larry Miller as the hairdresser in
The Princess Diaries.
So to see him here as a father figure is very funny, as Walter Stratford. Now, most of these names of the characters are direct references to the characters they represent in the play Taming of the Shrew. For example, Kat is Katerina, Patrick is Petruchio, and Bianca is literally Bianca in the play.
If it ain't broke, you know what I'm saying?
Hello. They just kept that one. They were like, we'll just keep Bianca. The last name Stratford is a reference to Shakespeare's birthplace of Stratford upon Avon. And the last name Verona, Patrick's last name, is a reference to where his original character, Petruchio, is from in the play Taming of the Shrew. And even the high school, called Padua High School, is a reference to Padua, Italy, where the play takes place.
The music in this movie is by Richard Gibbs. Again, one of the favorite overarching things about this movie seems to be the nostalgic soundtrack, the eclectic soundtrack. And I also think it's a soundtrack that uses a lot of female-driven music, obviously to reflect a character who is a big feminist, as we will learn about Kat. The costume design is by Kimberly A. Tillman. And the costumes here are pretty much meant to be reflective of what you would expect from high school in the late 90s. I think the beauty standards of today are very different, and I think they were a little bit more naturalistic in the 90s. And I do think that's something that I romanticize, but it is something that I miss. I kept turning to Ryan and being like, see, these people are like the prettiest people in your English class. They're not even the hottest people you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, and I think the oldest amongst them was Heath Ledger,
who was
and
20.
He was maybe 20.
Yeah.
So they were all in their late teens doing this movie. So I think that definitely played to the authenticity of their characters. Mm-hmm. And as far as the fashion goes and like the nostalgia for it, honestly, I guess for me, what stands out is definitely the lack of body representation.
Ooh, speak on it.
And the fact that this style can feel very nostalgic for a specific body type. But for any body type above like a size 8 or a 10, like you automatically just feel attacked all the time.
Fair.
So
like, there are movies where they specifically bring up very fat-phobic things. They don't discuss it in this movie, but it's because no one has a different body.
Exactly.
There's no difference in ability. There's hardly a difference in race, which is something that we are obviously going to get into.
You know, as far as race, I feel like for a 90s teen movie, I saw a lot more diversity than I was used to seeing in other pre-90s teen movies. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I may be wrong, it's almost like they kept the ratio, because anytime you saw a group of 3 or more people, there was a token friend of color. And I kept seeing it over and over. And I can see the scenes. I can picture the scenes. I know the scenes where I'm like, oh, yep, the ratio sticks here. Yep, there's the ratio again. Oh, in multiple instances where I'm like, 3 or more white friends, there's the one friend of color. I don't love that I recognize the pattern, but it was an effort made to make sure that the shots were diverse. So, progress for 1999? I don't know how I feel. I kind of have mixed feelings about it, that I noticed the pattern and then I'm like, well, I guess they made an effort to like mathematically make sure that there was diversity in each shot.
Not mathematically.
I'll take that versus no diversity.
I mean, when we get there in our discussion of like the plot, I have a lot of thoughts on the characters of color we do get in this movie and how they are represented. Yikes. This is my forever soapbox. Like, this is the shit I'm always going to be mad about.
Yeah, sorry guys, this is why we're here.
I mean, we'll see. We'll get into it. But before we get into it, sister, the very last thing we're going to do, I want you to hit me with that scorecard.
So, wow, I feel like I haven't done this in a while.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. All right, so scorecard. Is this a straight or queer love story or story? This story is very straight. There's only straight couples.
Devastatingly straight.
However, I argue that the school counselor, I think she's gay. With the way this woman struggled to describe a penis, she didn't like them very much or didn't have much experience with them.
Paola.
So I'm going to go with Miss Perky.
I'll just say it. Outside of the moment, who likes a penis? You know what I'm saying?
I'm dead.
Like, who, right? Like, no wonder she's having it. It's like 9 a.m. I don't know when you know what I'm saying? Like, she's having trouble describing it. Who's thinking about dick at, like, right? Like, you're at your job.
The bitch trying to write a romance novel.
Girl, she's at her job. There are teens filing in and out of that office. That was wild, wild to me.
Does it have source material? Yes. The Shakespearean play, The Taming of the Shrew, written by the man that is William Shakespeare, a man from the 16th century. So we can expect tons of misogyny. The main plot for The Taming of the Shrew depicts the courtship of Petruchio and Caterina, the headstrong, obdurate shrew. Initially, Caterina is an unwilling participant in the relationship with Petruchio. However, he tames her, quote unquote, with various psychological and physical torments, such as keeping her from eating and drinking until she became obedient, compliant, and therefore desirable. The subplot features a competition between the suitors of Caterina's younger sister, Bianca, who is seen as the ideal woman because she's not as
headstrong,
shrewish, and headstrong as her sister Caterina. The question of whether the play is misogynistic has become the subject of considerable controversy. So the reason it's become the subject of considerable controversy is because it's categorized as a comedy, right? And many suspect that it was written maybe to expose like the ridiculousness of like the idea of taming a woman. But I'd like to argue that if this was in fact the case, the end of the story would have come with some repercussions for the antagonist, which should be Petruchio, who abused his wife into submission. And it doesn't. It ends with him getting exactly what he wants, which makes it seem as though Shakespeare wrote him as his hero. So, therefore, just because he's a great playwright doesn't mean he wasn't a misogynistic asshole. So, thank you, Shakespeare, for everything you've contributed to our society.
Which is unfortunately a lot.
Which is a lot. Thank you. And I mean that positively, but also a little negatively. So, yes, that was written by a man. The movie, however, was written by two women, which we mentioned.
Yes, Karen McCullough and Kristen Smith.
And it was directed by a man, Gil Younger. What's the trope, baby? Enemies to lovers. This is a teen's enemies to lovers. We have the bet trope, right? Where we are betting that our characters are going to be able to take out someone who's considered undesirable.
Oh my God.
And there's another bet that another character can take out somebody who is desirable. So gotta love that. I would add that the whole taming of the shrew is a trope that we often see used in rom-coms, where a person or a group of persons conspire to make somebody quote unquote tame or less rigid by finding them a love interest. Another movie that plays around with this same trope, Deliver Us from Eva, which also includes a bet among sisters to get her laid so that she would get off their backs.
Oh my God.
As a trope, thankfully, I guess, it has evolved into a man meets a headstrong woman, and in efforts to try to tame her, quote unquote tame, I hate the fucking word, Or as he placates her, he ends up falling in love with her just as she is, and she doesn't need to change. So, you ready for this back of the book?
Back of the book on the movie. Let's go.
Back of the book summary on this movie. It's short, straight from IMDb. A high school boy, Cameron, cannot date Bianca until her antisocial older sister, Kat, has a boyfriend. So Cameron pays a mysterious boy, Patrick, to charm Kat.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is classic Shakespeare, right? Like overlapping subplots, lots of trickery and scheming and dishonesty and obfuscation. That's big Shakespeare energy. So let's get into it. During the opening credits, using scratchy animated text on screen, we open with the Seattle skyline on like a stunning day. It is straight up summertime, and overhead shots of the gorgeous suburban Pacific Northwest. The song 1 Week by Bare Naked Ladies is opening up the movie, so we're hype. Listen, if there are movies that are cups of soup, this is like eating a plate of fries with your friends at the mall in the food court, you know? Like, this is so comfortable. You know exactly what to expect. You're like, it's the 90s.
You were listening to this song on the way to the movie theater.
Yes. The entire movie was filmed in and around the Tacoma, Washington area, and they actually didn't build any sets for this movie. Everything was like an existing location that they scouted. So I thought that was really, really cool, including the high school, which we're about to see. The camera lands on an open Volkswagen convertible driving down the street with 4 trendy, upbeat-looking teenage girls. They are dancing along to the aforementioned song, which you can imagine is like coming from their radio, until a beat-up older car pulls up next to them at the crosswalk, blasting the song Bad Reputation by Joan Jett. This car is driven by Julia Stiles, who has her hair up. It's long and it's curly, and she is wearing black.
She is not like most girls. She's different, okay? She listens to punk rock, and she does not care about her reputation. You know what? I also read somewhere that the car she's driving in real life belonged to Heath Ledger.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh shit.
That's so fun. And the girls all make stank faces at Julia Stiles because, oh no, it's a girl with different music taste than us. And they stop vibing and they stop having a good time. All girls, including Julia Stiles, mutually roll their eyes at each other until she drives away. Opening credits continue under the song Bad Reputation. We cut to a shot of a bunch of teenagers playing fucking roller hockey on the stone walkway in front of a fucking castle. The castle's the high school.
Like Nadhya said before, this high school, this is a real high school. It was originally built to be a luxury hotel. But during construction, it was like severely damaged by some fire. The construction halted and was no longer funded. And so the city purchased it and reconstructed it into a high school. This is called Central High School in Tacoma, Washington. And the architect a couple years later then did the big, humongous stadium that literally he built to originally seat 32,000 people.
Fucking fuck.
In present day, it seats about 15,000.
Jesus.
Fucking crazy. You can actually take a tour of this school if you visit Tacoma, Washington.
I would love like more movies being shot here because it's like so gorgeous, and they clearly had like all of the set that they needed just in the real school, in the real field.
It just added to like the
authenticity of it.
It almost added to the Shakespeare of it.
Oh,
like,
that's true.
Taking this adaptation of a Shakespearean play and then putting it in like a high school that looks like a castle.
Jesus. No, you're totally right. We see Julia Stiles walking up to the school, where she walks directly up to a poster that announces Padua Prom blasting into 2000.
Listen, 99 and the 2000s, they love fucking blasting into shit. It was I meant like robots and spaceships and technology, but you know what?
They love blasting into shit.
Keep your head where it's at.
Nah,
fine.
They love blasting into shit. And she walks up to this poster and fucking tears it down. And the girl who is putting up the posters is standing behind her and just goes, "Hey!"
She obviously hates prom.
She hates prom, and she does not give a fuck if other people like her, because why did you just tear that shit down?
If you hate it, walk by it, bitch.
Just don't go.
She needs other people to not like prom too.
So we cut from there to the office of someone named Miss Perky, who is played by the queen, the legend, the icon, Allison Janney. Get the fuck out of here. They use her for 37 seconds in this entire movie, and it's a crime to my
That's
heart.
all she needs.
Oh, God.
She did enough in those 37 seconds.
And she is typing away at her desk behind a computer, and it is an old Macintosh, okay? She's typing smut as she's dealing with students, like, in the morning. It's like 8 a.m.
As his hand slid up her creamy white thigh. Then she looks up, and it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Again, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is now in her office, and we find out that she's supposed to be the fucking guidance counselor. He is introduced to us as the new student at school whose name is Cameron. We learn that his father is military, and so he's moved around a lot. Miss Perky doesn't give a fuck beyond that about what he's got to say. She says, I'm sure you won't find Padua much different from any other high school. Same assholes and shit for brains as anywhere else. Girl, what is in that mug?
It's coffee.
What are we sipping on? That's an Irish coffee if I've ever seen it. And he, like us, is shocked by this statement. She dismisses him from her office abruptly and just tells him to scoot. He walks out terrified as Heath Ledger, rest in peace, walks in. She greets him, Patrick Verona, and he immediately starts flirting with her and asks if he should hit the lights, for the mood. He obviously goes there often enough to feel comfortable around her. She refers to him as Kangaroo Boy. That's the only tip outside of his very inconsistent accent that we get into him being Australian for the next hour of the movie. It's like kind of unnerving. I don't know if they thought Kangaroo Boy was like enough. It's like, I need you.
That's it. We're supposed to know.
I need you to tell me. You know what I mean? And obviously, Heath Ledger is Australian. But again, as I mentioned, his accent is incredibly inconsistent throughout the movie. We learn later on that Patrick Verona is meant to be half Australian, lived in Australia as a child. Okay, fine. This is something that they could have told us with clarity, because then I'm spending the first hour of the movie being like, is his accent fake? Like, is he lying?
I think you're supposed to watch this as a teenager and be like, oh, he's hot. He has an accent.
Oh my God. Apparently, the reason that Patrick is in Miss Perky's office is because he was accused of flashing a lunch lady with his penis. But he says it was a prank and that he was using a bratwurst sausage in the lunch line as a joke.
Gross.
Miss Perky goes bratwurst while glancing down. And she says, aren't we the optimist? Girl.
Honestly, that was objectively funny.
No, it's funny as hell. What the sweet fuck?
Definitely crosses the line of student-teacher relationships. Yeah. And they continue to cross the line. This isn't even the worst of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. She dismisses him with a very light verbal warning and returns to her laptop, replacing throbbing member with bratwurst in her forthcoming lunch-themed slutty romantic novel.
I'm telling you, this lady does not regularly enjoy penises. There's no way.
Ugh, my God. We see Cameron in the busy school hallway being greeted by who we will learn is Michael. Michael is played by David Krumholtz, who is...
He is Bernard.
Bernard the elf.
Bernard the head elf.
Yeah, he's truly that guy from that thing.
He's in a lot of stuff.
Michael is clearly kind of like a geeky dude who has been entrusted with showing Cameron around the school.
Why is he dressed like a manager in AT&T? Why? Like... down to like the pen in his pocket.
Aww,
like,
he's supposed to be a nerd.
Why? No nerd in my high school dressed in button-ups and slacks.
Our high school wasn't like that. And I think it's explained in the next couple of seconds. So...
Okay, sorry. I'll hold off.
So he looks like a big geek. And the funny thing is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is like, oh, yeah, they usually send those like audiovisual nerds to like show me around the school. And Michael immediately like blows off an audiovisual kid who's like wheeling a TV down the hallway and pretends that
towards him.
Yes, and pretends he doesn't know him. We get a very funny tour around the school. And this is a classic fucking teenage movie move. Michael walks Cameron through a crash course of all of the very particular cliques. And one thing that I do like is that this movie, it gets edgy with it. You know what I'm saying? Because they have coffee kids, white Rastas,
Goodness.
cowboy enthusiasts.
One thing I will say is that the cultural appropriation is like equal opportunity. There's not one culture being appropriated. It's like multiple. So you can't point the finger at one.
White
So,
Rastas.
with dreads.
And then we meet the future MBAs, the Ivy League accepted, greed is good. And we find out that the reason Michael is dressed like a manager at AT&T is because he is part of this group, but was kicked out because his fellow clique member, Bogey Lowenstein, started a rumor that he buys his iZods at the outlet mall.
And he says, as he's like walking towards them, yuppie greed is back, my friend. And I'm like,
Shut your
you know, if
fucking
only they knew that 25 years later, the world would be on fire. Thanks to yuppie greed, my friends.
But did they increase profits for the shareholders? Paola, I don't think you're thinking of the long game here.
So they don't have to buy their iZod pants at the outlet mall.
And I'm just going to say, listen, I'm just going to say, Paola, on my very worst days at my jobs, various jobs, I would turn to my coworkers at the end of the day and I would say, hey guys, I know today was a really hard day, but at least we built some value for the shareholders. And I think that's why I shouldn't be allowed to have a job. So anyway, we see Cameron catch sight of Larissa Olenek, introduced in slow motion, it's the 90s, baby, who Michael calls out as Bianca Stratford. Cameron replies, I burn, I pine, I perish, which is a Shakespeare quotation.
Monday through Friday, baby.
Mondays we yearn, Tuesdays we pine, Wednesdays we want, Thursdays we long, Friday we perish.
We perish.
Jesus Christ.
I loved him so much for this line. This line is actually taken right out of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew.
His character, who in the play is named Lucentio,
yes,
is instantly stunned by her. Michael sarcastically calls Bianca, quote unquote, deep, right before we hear her say, there's a difference between like and love. Because I like my Skechers, but I love my Prada backpack. And unnamed black friend Gabrielle Union replies, but I love my Skechers.
She has a name. They just haven't said it yet.
Paola, exactly. And Bianca says, that's because you don't have a Prada backpack. And Gabrielle Union goes, oh. What?
You're supposed to see the teenage frivolities.
And this is my personal thing. This is the Michael Jordan meme. And I took that personally. Anytime a character of color in a movie that is predominantly white is dumb, I take that shit personally. You want to meet me in the parking lot after that movie. Yeah. Michael tells Cameron to keep dreaming. The Stratford sisters have a notoriously uptight father and are not allowed to date. We cut to an English classroom where the teacher, who is black, and I mention this mostly because it becomes meaningful momentarily, asks about The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. One classmate answers, I loved it. He's so romantic. And unfortunately, my verbatim response, which Kat said on the screen as I was saying it out loud to my husband, was, romantic Hemingway? Because she's right. And she says he was an abusive, alcoholic misogynist. And as soon as she starts talking, everyone gets really exasperated and starts sighing. Most of all, the teacher.
He's like, God, here we go again.
We see Andrew Keegan. He's clearly the mean, hot, popular kid. That is exclusively the character that he played in the 90s. Calls her a bitter, self-righteous hag with no friends. Wow, that's personal. The teacher tells him to pipe down, Chachi. Oh my God.
Did he call him Chachi because he's half Colombian in real life?
Wow. Kat calls him an asshole and says, what about Sylvia Plath, Charlotte Bronte, Simone de Beauvoir? Because this is how we learn that she's smart, annoying, and a feminist all at once. During this diatribe, Patrick Verona comes into the class and says, what I miss? He's like 10 minutes late. Kat replies, the oppressive patriarchal values that dictate our education.
Honestly, girl.
And I'm going to say something. This is the point where my husband paused the movie, turned to me and said, I didn't know you were in this movie. And I don't know when the divorce papers are coming, but I know they're coming.
Listen, it's such a 90s thing to make the feminist like this angry, undesirable. Like, what the fuck? This is one of those things about this movie that I dislike very much.
Oh, yeah.
Is they keep harping on the fact that she needs to be mean and angry because she's a feminist. Like, fuck you.
Well, she needs to be mean and angry
Anyway.
because she's a feminist. But above all, baby, she's a white feminist. And she's going to let you know that based on her fucking reading material. And listen, I know it's the 90s, guys. I'm not saying that the movie needed to do this. I'm saying that this is why I'm angry in 2025. The rants are never intersectional. It is white women because women because women. And if your feminism is not intersectional, baby, it ain't feminism.
There you go.
And Kat is no intersectional feminist.
Yet. She's a teenager.
All right. After she says this, Patrick replies, "Good," and immediately turns around and leaves the classroom. And this cracked me up. Like,
that was funny.
Andrew Keegan, also known as Joey Donner, asks the teacher if they can make Kat take her Midol before the start of class. I wanted to jump into the screen and kill him. Like, if this was a horror movie, that's when I'd be like, and you're gonna die. Like, you will meet your maker before the end of this movie. I'll make sure of it. And the teacher replies, "Someday you're gonna get bitch slapped, and I won't do a thing to stop it."
Love it.
This is one thing that I will say about the screenplay of this movie, okay? It has got lines that are absolute bangers. Banger lines do not a good story make. The English teacher continues to say, "And Kat, I want to thank you for your point of view. I know it must have been difficult to overcome all of those years of upper middle class suburban oppression, but the next time you storm the PTA crusading for better lunch meat or whatever you white girls complain about, ask them why they can't buy a book written by a black man."
Yes. And I'm watching this like, yes.
And again, banger lines. Banger lines. This is like standing ovation lines type shit.
I love that the writers of the movie, by way of Mr. Morgan, kind of call out her performative white feminism, right? And her lack of intersectionality. And the delivery was chef's kiss. I just wish that they would have used that opportunity for Mr. Morgan as the educator to refer him to some black feminist authors like Alice Walker, Bell Hooks, so many. But instead, he sends her to the office because he's annoyed that she spoke up when the other fucking douchebag spoke up too and was like mad disrespectful to her. So it lends to the idea that even he as a man has the same misogynistic tendencies to silence a girl simply because she's outspoken, even though she's the one in the right.
I agree with you. I think part of that is supposed to reflect the existing exasperation with her, like that everyone is tired of her and annoyed with her. But I agree, that's fucking stupid. You're reinforcing the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. This could have been a good educational moment. I mean, it was. It could have been furthermore by highlighting some black feminist authors, right? Since you're so interested in white feminist authors. I get that you're trying to figure out a way to send her to the office. That's the next ploy. Maybe she fucking gets up and punches fucking Joey, and that's what gets her sent to the office. Don't make the teacher send her to the office
just
after
for
she
being annoying. After he makes this impassioned diatribe, the white Rastas shout, "That's right, Mom."
Oh, no.
In horrible Jamaican accents. And the teacher goes, "Don't even get me started on you guys. I'm up to here, y'all. I'm about to pop off. Fuck out of here." We cut from the English classroom to Miss Perky at her office trying very hard to write her romance novel. She asks her secretary for a synonym for the word engorged.
You know, engorged, kind of like a pimple or an infection, a swelling. I'm telling you, this woman does not like penises.
Paola, I'm going to say it again. If you're not in the moment, no one does. Kat walks in and offers tumescent as a good synonym. This is an adjective meaning swollen or becoming swollen as a response to sexual arousal.
There you go. Great word, Kat.
Miss Perky tells Kat that she heard that she was terrorizing Mr. Morgan's class again. And Kat replies, "Expressing my opinion is not a terrorist action."
I loved her response there.
Mm-hmm. Miss Perky reminds her of Bobby Ridgway's testicle retrieval operation went well. What? Kat responds, I still maintain that he kicked himself in the balls, which tells us as the viewer, she kicked him in the balls. And good for you. I bet he deserved it.
He deserved it. I love that for her.
And the point is, Kat, Miss Perky continues, as she points at her mug with a cat drawing on it and goes, Cat!
There's definitely not coffee in that mug.
That woman is drunk. That woman is drunk.
Eso te pasará un pase.
I need someone to do a fucking wellness check on Miss Perky. She ain't that perky. Miss Perky tells Kat most people perceive her as a heinous bitch.
And Kat smiles though. Kat's like, okay.
Okay.
She's like, I'll take that.
And says, you might want to work on that. Kat sarcastically thanks her for her guidance and says she'll let her get back to Reginald's quivering member. Does everyone know that Miss Perky is writing a romance novel?
Listen, you know what? She wears glasses. You can probably see the reflection of what she's writing in her glasses.
We cut to a shot of the students outside where token friend of color says to Joey Donner, Virgin alert, your favorite, as Bianca Stratford walks by.
His favorite virgin? I don't know.
Joey Donner is determined to get with a virgin because that's his thing? We look over at Michael and Cameron in the same scene. They finally introduce the character to the viewer as Joey Donner, who's popular big guy, and apparently a local model who does regional advertisements. Cameron is gaping at Bianca, while Michael calls her vapid and conceited. Cameron is like, you're not looking at what's there, you're missing it. And Michael's like, what's there is a snotty little princess wearing a strategically placed sundress to make guys like us realize that we can never touch her, and guys like Joey realize they want to. Put her in your spank bank and move on.
Put it on your lust list.
I'm gonna keep spank bank. Like, that's not what I take issue with. No, I'm joking.
His little monologue there made me fucking cringe.
Yeah.
It gives like woman hater,
yeah,
incel woman hater. It's her fault that her sundress provokes the men around her and they can't have her. That's her fault. Mm-hmm. And she is in control of that. It's fucking gross. Right along with this is one of the times where Cameron just continues to prove he's a gem. And in my opinion, the true romantic hero of this movie is he refuses to subscribe to this bullshit that his friend is talking about, because just by the way she smiles, he says, and the look in her eyes, I can tell that there's more to her than you think. I'm like, aw, like protect him at all costs.
Michael lets Cameron know Bianca is on the market for a French tutor, and Cameron is determined to become that tutor even though he does not speak French. And apparently Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a French speaker in real life.
That's funny.
Cut to everyone leaving school. Joey Donner pulls up next to Kat in the parking lot as she's walking to her car. He's in an open red convertible because he's a teenager having a midlife crisis, and tells her that according to last month's Cosmo, her look is out. Dog, why the fuck are you reading Cosmo?
I can give you a couple reasons why. Also, he only listens to the All My Life remix by Casey and JoJo. In every scene that he pulls up in his red convertible, it's playing the Casey and JoJo like iconic baby, 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 baby.
What the fuck?
Every time he pulls up in the red convertible.
It's his favorite song. We cut from there to Bianca walking with her friend, Gabrielle Union, again, doesn't have a name yet, who has aged maybe a week or two since this movie came out 26 years ago.
You know she was like 25 when this movie came out?
Shut the fuck up.
I said Heath Ledger was the oldest? No, she was the oldest.
Fucking fuck. She looks amazing. Jesus Christ. This is like, did you watch the Variety Actors on Actors? Coleman Domingo and Bainita Culkin.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, oh, how old are you? And Coleman Domingo's like, oh, I'm 54. And Bainita Culkin is like, oh my God, you look amazing. Like, what do you do? And he goes, I'm black. And it's literally like, oh,
okay.
Okay.
That explains it.
Gabrielle Union delivers these iconic lines. I know you can be underwhelmed and you can be overwhelmed, but can you ever just be whelmed?
Whelmed?
I think you can in Europe, Bianca offers helpfully.
Honestly.
Dude, lines. This is what I mean. Lines are bangers. These individual lines, you could pluck them out with tweezers and they're superb. This is so fucking funny. And then you tie it into the fabric of the rest of the movie and you're like, what is happening?
I honestly laugh out loud at that every single time. And I love how as soon as she says that you can just be whelmed, Joey Donner pulls up and offers them both a ride in his convertible. I'm like, oh, there's a little foreshadowing there.
Kat sees this from her car. She is driving her only friend that we see her with for the entire movie, and someone on an electric bike drives in front of her car. She stops short and shouts, "Remove head from sphincter, then drive."
I don't know what that means.
Well, sphincter is just a tight ring of muscle at like the end of like tubes inside your body. You have a sphincter in your esophagus. You have a sphincter in your asshole. So usually that's what people mean. Remove your head from your ass. But it's stupid. See what I mean?
It's because she's so smart.
The digs in this movie are very bad. Anytime that she has to have a comeback and she's like, ooh, zing, it is not good. Again, some of these lines are fucking gold, and then some of them are absolute dirt.
Maybe in 99, people were like, wow, she ate.
Ooh, she ate that. Remove head from sphincter, then drive. She left no crumbs. Girl, she left more crumbs than a Nature Valley bar. What are we doing?
Wow.
We see that the guy on the electric bike is Michael, and Cameron walks up to him to ask if he's okay. He says, yes, just a minor encounter with the shrew. And I think the best way to resolve this movie, burn the school to the ground, kill them all.
All right, Daenerys.
Oh my God. Michael continues to say, that's your girlfriend's sister, the mewling Rampalian wretch herself.
Goodness gracious.
And then turns to Cameron and says, stay cool, bro.
That was pretty funny.
We cut to overhead footage. And that's one thing that I just want to call out about this movie. It does like overhead continuous shots, wide shots, like really, really well. We have this overhead shot of just like a really gorgeous suburban neighborhood right near the water with these like massive houses. The house that was actually used in this film for the Stratford family house still stands at 2715 North Junette in Tacoma, Washington. Both the interior and the exterior of the house were used in the film. This house is massive and it is stunning.
Yes, this house is almost 120 years old.
Jesus.
This is a Victorian home worth $2.1 million today. In 2000, it was $500,000.
That's a lot for 2000, I feel.
In today money, 25 years later, it is 2.1 mil.
As we zoom in on the house, the song Spiderbait by Calypso is playing, which lets us know that this is going to be a Kat moment. Kat is reading a comically large hardcover copy of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Huge type.
She needs you to know that she's reading Sylvia Plath. She needs everybody walking by the house to know that she's reading Sylvia Plath.
It's the only book to ever exist if you're an angsty white girl. I'm not even coming for... I fuck with Sylvia Plath, but like, oh, holy shit, dude. Relax.
Have you read it?
I have not read The Bell Jar. I've read Sylvia Plath's poetry, and I really like it. As Kat is sitting with her comically large hardcover of The Bell Jar, her dad, played by Larry Miller, comes up and says, hello, Katerina. Make anyone cry today?
Goodness me.
And she replies, sadly, no, but it's only 4:30. And they smile at each other?
Yeah, you know, because apparently being a feminist in the 90s meant you were this scary creature that made people cry.
Right?
She doesn't seem to mind continuing to like perpetrate this stereotype of herself. Like she likes it. As the viewer, you assume she uses this facade as a defense mechanism. I think you're just meant to understand that by her actions and how she is with her guard down versus how she is when she feels she's like being perceived.
Bianca comes downstairs during this interaction and greets her father with a hi, daddy, who replies, hello, princess.
So then there you see the direct contrast of how he greets his oldest versus how he greets his youngest.
Insane. It's fucking crazy. It's like you're cooking them in a lab. Whatever. So we learn as their dad is going through the mail that Kat has gotten into Sarah Lawrence, which is an exclusive private liberal arts college just north of New York City. It was originally a women's college that became co-ed in 1968. Kat's dad is surprised that she wants to go to college all the way across the country and starts to get upset. To deflect attention from that, Kat asks Bianca who drove her home in front of their dad. Cue the dad having a freak out that Bianca was driven home by a boy because the house rule is no dating until you graduate. We learn that the dad is like some type of medical professional. He's definitely an OBGYN and says that he sees a ton of teenage mothers and that's why he's so strict with his kids. I delivered a set of twins to a 15-year-old girl today, he tells them in the midst of this conversation. Do you know what she said to me? And Bianca replies, that I'm a crack whore who should have made my skeezy boyfriend wear a condom? Ooh, I think Bianca sucks.
That line made me squirm.
I hated it.
As the movie, let's villainize teens that choose to have sex, and let's also put all the responsibility on the girl. The boyfriend has no accountability.
We're making so many assumptions about this girl.
Right. You got to villainize young women who are choosing to have sex.
If they're even choosing it.
Yes, that's another story. While one of your main characters, the most popular kid in school, is known for just exclusively looking for girls to have sex with. And he's celebrated and people love him. I mean, he is a villain in the story, but he's popular. Girls like him. It's definitely not the same level of critique for his character as you're getting from an unknown character who's a 15-year-old girl that got pregnant because she had sex.
Yep.
Anyway.
Their father continues. She said, I should have listened to my father. And Bianca says, she did not. And Mr. Stratford goes, it's what she would have said if she wasn't so doped up. Jesus Christ. Bianca laments that she's the only girl at school not dating. And we learn from there that Kat doesn't date either. And Bianca tells Kat, where did you come from, planet loser? And Kat responds, as opposed to planet, look at me.
Look at me.
Dirt. This is dog shit. You're telling me that the same writing team that wrote the Black English teacher's rant wrote that fucking line? Oh my God. Scrap it. Turn the fucking lights off. Like, what are we doing? Jesus. As the sisters are having this back and forth, the dad makes a new rule. Bianca can date once Kat starts dating. And so then Bianca tells Kat, and I'm just quoting parts of the movie directly, so this isn't language that I would use. This is from the movie that people love, right? Can't you just find some blind, deaf retard to take you to the movies so I can go on one date? Okay. No. Now it's obvious to me that Bianca fucking sucks.
Yeah, ableism and misogyny. You gotta love the 90s. You know that time we're so nostalgic for that you want to go back to?
Okay, I never said I wanted to go back. First of all, I said that there were things that I missed, and you can shut your mouth. Something that they're obviously really trying to drive home in this moment is that the sisters really don't get along. They don't ride for each other. And that's something that is obviously very unfamiliar to me as a concept. I already bristle when I watch movies where the siblings don't get along. When sisters in movies hate each other, it's not that I find it triggering because it doesn't bring to mind relationships in my life. That's not what my sisterhood is like, but I hate it. The way these people are fucking with each other, insulting each other, sabotaging each other.
No, it's like a disdain. Yeah,
that I never
they can't
understood.
Stand each other, can't be in the same room, can't look at each other, can't talk about
they're
anything.
gonna physically fight. It's like, what? It's not like, oh, we're different. We don't hang out on purpose. That I'm kind of like, yeah, you're different people. But no. I never understood this type of shit. From here, we cut to a scene in the school library where Bianca is meeting Cameron for what we can assume is French tutoring for the first time. This all happens fucking off screen, I guess, the setup for this. Cameron ends up asking her out, and Bianca explains that she's not allowed to date until her sister dates, but her sister is a, quote, hideous brand of loser, unquote, and
Jesus,
a bitch. She calls her sister a bitch to a stranger.
Not even to her,
dog.
To her face.
We're squaring up. I'm meeting Bianca in the parking lot.
Listen, you could call me a bitch to me, to my face. To somebody else, that's another level. I'm sorry.
Square the fuck up. 3:00. 3:00 by your sister's fucking car. I'ma smoke your ass. That is the most insane shit. To a stranger? Okay.
Also, now we just putting our family shit out there, huh? Latin American families, you better not be talking shit about your family to strangers.
These are the moments where I'm like, white people don't fear death. I don't make the rules. You know what I'm saying? White people don't fear death.
All right, but I want to talk about Cameron. Something that I love about Cameron and that you start to notice here is that he won't regurgitate other people's vile comments about Kat. Even when Bianca calls her like a hideous random loser, he like rephrases that and he's like, yeah, I noticed she can be antisocial.
And I think it's because he's new to the school. It's kind of implied that like everyone else who's more familiar with Kat, who's grown up with her or been around her, their opinions are all pretty calcified. He's new to the whole thing.
I can see that. But if they wanted, I think they could have easily portrayed him as like, you just jump on the bandwagon.
Cameron offers to find someone to date Kat if it means Bianca will go on a date with him. And she agrees. So she's like in on this weird plan because it's going to end up being a trick for Kat.
She doesn't care about tricking Kat. She doesn't care about calling Kat a bitch to some guy. She doesn't care about Kat's feelings at all.
I hate it. I hate it.
She's only thinking about her interests in the past couple interactions that have to do with Kat.
We cut to the next scene where the brand new best friends, Michael and Cameron, this is kind of cute. I love how quickly they become friends, are basically holding interviews to see if anybody will try to date Kat. And they get laughed at by all the boys they ask. Cut to their science class. Michael and Cameron are still discussing their plan. Camera cuts over to Patrick Verona, who is in the same class, using his own knife to stab the frog. And Cameron asks, what about him?
He looks scary. I'm sure he'll date Kat just fine.
It's like, I'm sure we don't care if Kat is in danger. Michael starts repeating a bunch of insane rumors about Patrick. It's clear that nobody really understands Patrick's like history, right? Like he's also relatively new to their school. He says Patrick's an ex-con and a weirdo and he's done a bunch of unlawful shit. After that, Cameron still wants him to date Kat. Wow. In some type of shop class / art class hybrid, Cameron approaches Patrick, who drills a hole straight through his French textbook. And then Cameron chickens out and leaves.
This is so bizarre.
I literally, Paola, we cut to Michael and Cameron looking through the hole in the textbook. This is a really funny shot.
That's funny. And I guess it wouldn't have happened if Heath Ledger's character didn't obnoxiously drill through the book. But okay.
They're looking through the hole in the textbook and deciding what they need is to pay someone money because Kat dating her just for the fun of it? No fucking way. There needs to be money. There needs to be American green on the table for this. They need a financial backer for their plan.
Because they don't have their own money? Because my guy MBA in the...
He was kicked out, Paola.
He
buys his eyes out at the outlet mall.
Ah, got it. So right.
They need someone with money who's stupid. They decide to approach Joey Donner since he has made his desire for virgins, hate this, and Bianca Stratford obvious. And Joey has money from all his regional modeling. That's why he's got that midlife crisis red convertible. Joey, as they're having this conversation, like in the lunchroom, starts drawing a dick on Michael's face, which is objectively hilarious. And Michael just lets this happen.
You know, it's part of the deal.
Michael indicates that Joey can pay Patrick Verona to date Kat. And Joey's like, why the fuck are you arranging this, right? Like, what do you get out of this? And he says that what he gets out of it is like social capital. Like, you're going to be nice to me now. Joey's like, all right, I'll think about it. And that's the plan. Like, and this is what I mean. Like, Shakespearean stories tend to be very layered. Like, you have a bunch of characters with opposing motivations, converging motivations, operating in secret, lying. Like, that's a big part of Shakespearean tales. But I don't think those aspects translate into modern day movies. Like, I think this could have been a much looser adaptation. I think you could have changed some of this type of confusing fucking shit that doesn't make sense in 1999. We cut to a scene where we see all of the kids and teams practicing on the athletic field at the same time. This shit is chaotic as fuck. We see Joey Donner announce the plan that he has just hatched with Michael to Patrick Verona, who initially declines until Joey lands on an amount to pay him. They land on $50, which seems very, very low. Patrick is also smoking cigarettes through this entire interaction.
In school.
Wow.
Outside, but still
At school.
On school property.
Kat happens to be on the soccer team, so she's on the field, and Patrick Verona approaches her as practice lets out and tries to hit on her. And she plays his ass, because of course she does. She's fucking Kat. We cut to a scene after that where Kat and Bianca are at home doing their nighttime routines, probably in like a shared bathroom. And they're throwing jabs at each other because they're sisters who don't get along.
They're obviously arguing about caring about what people think, right? Bianca argues that Kat should be more likable, and Kat makes it clear that she doesn't care what people think. And I feel like for us growing up, although we didn't necessarily argue in this way, I feel like we had a similar dynamic in that for a long time, you wanted to be like the very opposite of whatever you felt I represented at like that specific time. Whether it was like dressing a certain way or whatever. Maybe it had a lot to do with like how my parents maybe doubled down on me for a lot of things. And like maybe you're just like, that obviously isn't working for her. I'm gonna not do that. But we just didn't really use those differences against each other, right? Like they do here, where they're like, they use it to hurt each other's feelings and to make each other feel bad. As they're having this argument, and really it's about like, I don't care what people think. And literally when Kat is like, I honestly don't care what people think. I really don't. And she turns to Bianca and it's like, you don't have to be like what people expect of you or like something like that. And her answer is like, well, I happen to like being adored.
Ooh.
So that right there paints for you and sets for you, like, here is the basis of their constant discord. Bianca, she wants to be seen and liked and loved by people, and she wants to be popular. And Kat could not care less, to the point where she goes the other way with it. I need you to know that I don't care, so I'm going to be a bitch.
And obviously, to a more mature viewer, the irony of that is like, the only reason you act like a bitch is because you care a lot.
You want people to think that you don't care. So you're performing, I don't care.
As they're having this discussion, Kat notices that Bianca is wearing a string of pearls that belonged to their mother, who has been absent this whole time. We haven't heard anything about her at all. Kat is angry about seeing Bianca wearing the pearls for reasons that she does not explain, and storms out of the bathroom.
Well, I think the pearls kind of are a symbolism of the gentle femininity she feels like she doesn't have and her sister does. They don't ever touch on that again, but I think there's something that gives it away later.
In the next scene, Patrick waits for Kat outside a record store near her car and starts trying to chat her up. Heath Ledger was like never my guy, right? Like I know people were very obsessed with Heath Ledger, had huge crushes on him when we were growing up. He's handsome. He smiles like an anime character. All teeth and angles and no lips when he smiles. And at this point, it's kind of like, dog, are you stalking her? Like, what's good?
He's trying to find opportunities to talk to her. I think it's interesting in that scene when she comes and talks to him, he asks her, oh, you're not afraid of me, are you? And it's like, why is that a thing he's expecting, right? It's almost like he also plays into like the scary guy thing that everybody has perceived him as, in the same way that she continues to play into like the perception everyone else has of her being like the angry shrew.
She blows him off and gets in her car to pull out of her spot until Joey Donner pulls up behind her and leaves his car idling, blocking her in. And this is where I could make a case for walkable cities. Why do you both have your cars there? You know what I mean? He refuses to move.
Honestly, he leaves his car in the middle of the
Literally
street.
in the middle of the fucking street. His radio is still on. She decides to back out anyway and crashes into his car, totally fucking up the front driver's side, which seems to be made of styrofoam. You cannot convince me that car is made of real car material. And she just says, oops, as Joey runs towards his car and goes, you bitch! and she's unfazed. Cut to Kat and her father at home, where he says, my insurance does not cover PMS. And I'm flooded with female rage.
You know, because anytime a woman's angry, it's because obviously she's got her period.
Ooh.
It's not because a man has inconvenienced her life.
He implies that she's acting out because of his decision on Sarah Lawrence, because he does not want her to attend. And she argues that he's punishing her because her mom left. So now we get the confirmation on what happened to the mom. Kat tells her father, quote, I want to go to an East Coast school. I want to make my own choices, and I want you to stop controlling my life just because you can't control yours. Unquote.
Ooh.
Again,
Ooh.
White kids don't fear death.
I mean, she might not be wrong.
Paola, it doesn't matter whether or not she's wrong. It doesn't matter. They don't fear death. This doesn't even seem to make her father angry.
Maybe because he knows she's right.
But then his beeper goes off and he has to go to work. And then we see Bianca come in. She yells at Kat for crashing into Joey's car. No one seems concerned about how much this will cost. Okay. Like, okay. Cut to Patrick and Joey at school talking about renegotiating the price of dating Kat. Because clearly this is going to be more expensive than I thought. Joey reluctantly agrees to pay Patrick $100. And I'm like, you know what? That's more like it. We've got time. We've got labor invested here. Is there a union for people that are tricking other people into dating them? Because we need some fair labor practices. We cut to this weird art class, shop class, hybrid where Patrick is welding. And he's approached by Michael and Cameron, who are basically like, we're in on this weird fucking Bianca Stratford dating agenda. We know that Joey talked to you. We're on the other side of the deal. Patrick asks, help me, God. Patrick asks, what is it with this girl? Does she have beer-flavored nipples? What?
Who wrote this?
What?
Not beer flavored nipples.
What?
In Spanish, in Dominican, this translates, ella será la única Coca-Cola del desierto.
And you know what? That makes more sense. Translate it directly into English. Sense. Like, put it in my fucking veins.
She must be the last Coca-Cola of the desert.
Yeah. I see no problem with that. That's poetry right there. Patrick clarifies he's just in it for the money and doesn't really give a fuck who ends up with Bianca. Who fucking cares, you know? What does she have? Beer flavored nipples? I'm so sorry.
That's it. I'm going to start saying that shit.
I'm just going to start saying that about like anything.
I'm going to put that shit on the shirt.
Put on a shirt? What's the shirt got? Beer flavored nipples? Anyway, they clarify that they're going to help Patrick date Kat so that Cameron ends up with Bianca, not Joey. Again, Patrick doesn't really fucking care. Michael says, "We're your guys," to which Cameron has to respond, but not in a prison movie kind of way, because it's the 90s and they forgot to remind us that they're homophobic.
Maybe it's because one of the rumors going around is that he was in jail for a while.
Okay, thank you. I accept.
So he wanted to clarify.
I accept that.
Like, not the type of buddies you made in jail.
The gay ones with dick. Like,
oh, no.
You feel me? Okay. Okay.
Oh my God.
Michael brings out a flyer printed on paper that's yellow, announcing that Bogey Lowenstein is having a party Friday night and that Patrick should try to take Kat. First of all, this flyer is literally like, Bogey Lowenstein wine and cheese night for future MBAs. Michael doctors this flyer to get back at Bogey, right? Because Bogey kicked him out of the future MBAs group, made him an outcast. The flyer now says, free beer party hosted by Bogey Lowenstein with his address on it. And he makes approximately 1,000 copies of this flyer. And there is this really cool shot where he's standing at like the top of a staircase, takes the flyers and throws them off of like the handrail of the staircase. And so we get a camera kind of like upskirting the staircase, watching all of the flyers billow down from above.
It is a dope ass shot. It is really cool. And they
cool.
do it in slow motion with like this,
cool music
slow
in the back.
motion rock song playing.
All you see is like a bunch of hands extending out from the banisters to catch the flyers. It's so cool. It's probably my favorite shot in the whole movie. Joey invites Bianca to join him at Bogey Lowenstein's party. She agrees. She's flattered. We cut to a scene where Bianca and Cameron are discussing Bogey's party and talking about Kat. They're at this large rock sculpture that is called the Fremont Troll. It is an actual mixed media sculpture. It's known as the Troll Under the Bridge. It's located under the north end of the Aurora Bridge in Tacoma, Washington.
That's so cool.
Oh my God, I loved it.
How did they get here? Did they walk home and under the bridge? Because she's not supposed to be dating, but she's hanging out with this guy after school.
That's what the
and
fuck I'm saying.
They're just walking through landmarks.
I'm like, is dad just delivering babies left and right? Like, is no one watching you? Because he's got all these rules with no way to enforce them.
Also, at this point, if you're just hanging out after school with some kid that might like
Start
you.
fucking already. Who cares? Sorry, was that wrong? No, that was wrong. Bianca clarifies to Cameron that Kat is not a KD Lang fan, which means she's not a lesbian. I don't think she has same-sex tendencies. The homophobia doesn't quit. It's gonna keep going, baby. Now that we started it, we're gonna keep finding it. Cameron is trying to get more information about Kat so that someone will date her, because he's like, dog, your sister is just fucking hard to date. The fact that her own sister doesn't seem to know enough about her to identify who would be like a suitable partner
already tells you enough. Yeah.
Wow. She says Kat won't date a smoker. We cut to Bianca and Cameron in Kat's room. In her room, oh my God, digging, oh my, like my collar's tight, digging through her desk and her dresser where she has black panties. Oh my God.
Her sister pulls out her own sister's underwear to show it to this boy.
No.
And says, oh my God, she has black underwear. It means she wants to have sex one day.
You don't buy black underwear unless you want someone to see it.
Excuse me?
Was this a rule I didn't know about? I don't know. I was 6 when this movie came out. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I missed the lore. But like, these are the moments where I'm like, if this was a video podcast and people could see my face, because I really don't feel like my words are conveying my discomfort with this.
The sheer disrespect she has for her sistership and for her sister. What I find interesting is then Cameron looks at Bianca like, hey, so can I see your room? And Bianca's like, a girl's room is very personal.
I'll kill you.
And so that tells me Bianca doesn't see her sister as just a girl.
Listen, a version of this movie that does not wake the ire within me is like Bianca goes to the room alone, digs through Kat's shit, just tells Cameron the next day, hey,
so this is what
I found. I made a list of the CDs that she likes. These are some of the posters on her wall. I'm not going to talk to you about her fucking underwear because that's none of mine or your goddamn business. Like, done. That's enough. That is a way to do it that is not so profoundly fucking insulting. Anyway. This movie is lightning fast. Like, we are going from scene to scene. We are zipping through. We cut to the next scene where Michael and Cameron end up at like a fucking biker bar. First of all, they look 15. I love that like kids in older movies look like legit kids, right? Like I'm not looking at fucking like Instagram models with iPhone face in a high school movie.
Yes, I do like that about this movie.
Turns out Patrick, who's 18, hangs out at the biker bar inside smoking and playing pool.
Yeah, and drinking.
And drinking beer.
Patrick is like a rogue. There's no mention of his parents or his home. He could be homeless. He could be living out of his car. You don't know. Nobody knows.
And that's what I mean. Like, we're already doing no investigation on the boys' personal lives in any way. We could get better from the girls' personal lives. I wanted more because I kept seeing the movie that I wished this was as I was watching it. Like, you're good. You could have been so great. I'm not like every rom-com has to be really fucking cerebral or whatever. No, I don't fucking mean that at all. Back in the biker bar where Patrick is indoor smoking, Patrick has to quit smoking for the time being because Kat won't date smokers. And then Cameron gives him a list of her quote-unquote likes. She likes Thai food, feminist prose, and angry girl music of the indie rock persuasion.
I mean, all that kind of...
Sounds lit.
I'm with it.
That sounds like a good Saturday night right there.
We can all get with a little angry girl indie rock.
Thai food? I'm yours. You bought me Thai food?
Hello.
Yeah, dude. Sorry. We're dating.
Feminist prose and angry girl music. Yeah. Sign us all up.
He gives Patrick a list of CDs that Kat has in her room. So this is smart. This is intel that they could have gotten from fucking Bianca. I'm like ready to commit a homicide. And Patrick says, quote, So I'm supposed to take her to buy her some noodles and a book and listen to chicks who can't play their instruments.
So because the women are musicians, they can't play their instruments. It's not good music. No, I'm telling you.
Burn the school to the ground. Start from scratch. It's over.
Dracarys, bitches. This is burn them all.
It's a wrap. We're done here. Michael asks if Patrick has ever been to Club Skunk because Kat's favorite band is playing a show there the following night. Patrick says he can't be seen at Club Skunk. And Michael's like, hey, dude, like, you gotta be there. Get over it. As the viewer, you can assume that Club Skunk is meant to be like a chick bar or like a girl club or something.
You assume he's like, I can't be seen there, as like, you know, it'll ruin his reputation somehow if he's seen there.
Reputation is already really bad.
But then he gets there
and knows the bartender.
He's greeted by name. And I'm like, oh, wait, so he frequents here? He comes here. He comes to the chick bar. He does listen to this music. He's pretending not to?
Nothing makes sense. Cut to Patrick arriving where we can assume is Club Skunk, walking down a long hallway that is exclusively filled with women. In the entirety of the club, which is very packed to see a live band, there are maybe 2 other guys, including the bartender. They are there to see Kat's favorite band, Letters to Cleo, which is a real band fronted by a woman. We see Patrick on the outskirts of the crowd watching Kat dancing with her friend, Mandela, who doesn't get a name until the end of the movie. And he seems to kind of genuinely smile because Kat's having this kind of uninhibited good time.
Yeah, I love that scene because it's like you see like the immediate like, oh, he immediately likes her as soon as he sees her with her guard down.
Yeah. As Paola mentioned, Patrick goes to the bar where he is greeted by name by the bartender.
So he's either a regular here or he's worked here before or...
I can't be seen at Club Skunk. I'm there too often. So like Kat goes to the bar to get water, sees Patrick and is immediately annoyed. She goes up to him and asks him, listen, if you're gonna ask me out again, like just get it out of the way. And he's like, can you like not? Like I'm trying to enjoy my night. And so she's caught off guard. He says, clearly using the information that he has gotten from Cameron and Michael and Bianca, you know, this band is good, but there are no Bikini Kill or the Raincoats. And these are 2 other angry girl bands. And Kat is like super impressed. And she's like, you know who the Raincoats are? And he's like, yeah, don't you? She's like, oh, you're not surrounded by your usual cloud of smoke. Like, I almost didn't recognize you. And he's like, oh, yeah, I heard smoking was bad for you, so I stopped. You can tell she's like very like, what is happening? He says that she looked sexy dancing with her friend and proceeds to ask her out to Bogey's party.
I mean, he genuinely meant that.
He did genuinely mean it. I'm not saying he didn't.
Genuinely
I just think
that.
Like read the room.
Well, he said it, and as he said it, had like was transitioning to another song, and everybody around him heard it.
That was really, really funny.
And she actually laughed at it. Like she like accepted it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in any other time she would have shut it down. She would have like got in his face or said some shit. He invites her to the party, and then at that point she's like whatever and walks away.
So she doesn't say yes, doesn't say no. So he's like, awesome, it's a yes.
See you at 9:30.
And he's like, I'll pick you up at 9:30. And I'm like, 9:30? That's a little late to go to a party.
When you're 30.
When you're 100 years old.
So we cut back to Kat and Bianca's house, where Bianca and her friend, whose name has not been said aloud yet, but we know that is Chastity. And I think that's funny because that's exactly what Bianca's father wants for her. So
Chastity. Yikes.
They're trying to sneak out, but like right behind Bianca's father. Obviously, he hears them, stops them in their tracks. Kat comes down the stairs, and Bianca starts to beg Kat to go to the party so that they can all be allowed to go to the party.
And I just want to remind you guys, this is Bogey Lowenstein's free beer party.
Yes.
Cool. Glad we're all on the same page.
Kat goes on this rant where she says, Bogey Lowenstein's party is just an excuse for all the idiots at our school to drink beer and rub up against each other to forget the emptiness of their pathetic, and then everyone joins in, consumer-driven lives.
Say it with me now.
So, first of all, I love that everyone already knows her spiel. This is her spiel. She says this all the time. Bianca's best friend knows the spiel and she doesn't even live there. So you already know this woman doesn't shut up and she will repeat it every time she feels the need to. Bianca, for the first time, actually talks to her sister and tries to level with her by pleading that she make an appearance at this party so that they're able to go. And Kat actually says yes to make her happy. Like, this is like the first sisterly interaction you see them have.
I want to mention this before I forget. So in the scene when they're getting ready to go to Bogey's party, Bianca is wearing this like little red dress, these matching red shoes. As soon as she came on screen, I was like, oh, Cher from Clueless.
Ah, I love that.
And I just pulled up pictures and I'm like, no, it was like perfect. And I feel like I have nothing definitive, but I feel like it's just so similar. It had to be like a little, like she's trying to seduce Joey. So she wears this teeny tiny red dress.
And I love that it pays kind of an homage to a classic rom-com. I mean, Clueless came out 4 or 5 years before.
Yes,
this
4
movie.
years before.
So now everybody's going to go to the party and Mr. Stratford is terrified. He tells Bianca that she needs to wear the belly. The belly is a vest that's made to mimic a fully pregnant body, and she's made to put on the vest to remind her of the consequences of her actions.
Honestly, dude, I respect it. It's not a terrible strategy.
No, it is a terrible strategy to forcibly shame your daughter instead of having an educational conversation and an open relationship with your kids. Instead of passing her a pregnancy vest, give her some condoms. Practice safe sex if you choose to have it, since I'm an informed OBGYN.
Yeah, honestly, right?
Like he should be
sex positive.
Reproductive health and rights.
Like he should be cool about this.
Anyway, everybody's going to the party. When Kat goes to open the door, who's there? Patrick Verona is already standing there to pick her up because of their aforementioned date that she didn't say no to.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
But she can't be too impressed. So she has to say whatever and lets him know that she's driving anyway. So we cut to Cameron and Michael getting ready at one of their houses as Michael bathes both of them in some cologne. I was confused by the room that they're in. It looks like an adult's room. Like there's a bottle of like Centrum on the dresser, but also there's like a poster of like a bikini model on the background. There's like games displayed on the shelves. And Michael is losing it. He's apparently never been to like a teenage party. The last party he'd gone to was at Chuck E. Cheese. This is a very exciting day for the both of them. We cut to a mob of teens making their way down a hill, descending on Bogey Lowenstein's classy, understated small gathering of wine and cheese. He hears the doorbell and gets excited that it might be Nigel who was tasked with bringing the brie. And guess what? It is Nigel with the brie and also an additional 200 other teens pushing through the door behind him. This house is immediately overwhelmed.
It is mobbed by children.
And now it's a fucking party. I mean, people brought a DJ. They brought
speakers. They brought kegs.
Even a little food, you know, to pick at. I mean, this is a community gathering. Everybody pitched in. This could have easily... I'm with it. I support it. This could have easily been a Dominican family gathering. You just show up with a plate of food and it's a party now. So we start making our way around the party and we see Kat and Patrick. Kat runs into Joey Donner, tells him to stay away from her fucking sister. He's gross and says, well, you know what? I can't guarantee that she'll stay away from me. Right at this moment, a fight breaks out. Joey Donner yells, oh, fight! Because these are children. You're reminded in this moment, these are fucking children. Bianca does end up gravitating towards Joey, and he flaunts it in Kat's face. And Kat tries to take Bianca aside, but she blows Kat off and tells her not to address her in public.
I hate that.
At home, you begged her to go to the party. She goes to make you happy, and now don't talk to me in public? Bitch. What? So Kat, now that she sees her sister like cozying up to Joey, she wants to talk earnestly and have a serious conversation with her. Like, oh, let me tell you something important. But she knew that Bianca was interested in Joey since the beginning of the movie. And she's been talking about Joey the whole time. At no point was she going to be like, oh, hey, I have to talk to you about him. None of that. Now, at the party, she wants to talk to her. Girl.
I know. I've never had a sister who I consider to be my enemy. Okay, so maybe I'm full of shit, but I don't understand the amount of information that they seem to have the ability to withhold from each other.
Honestly, like, you could have said this any other time.
It's like you live in the same house.
You live together.
You go to the same school.
Anyway, Bianca turns away to, quote unquote, enjoy her adolescence and tells Kat to go do the same. So what does Kat do? She starts pounding shots.
Jesus.
Patrick sees this and is like, what the fuck? Patrick asks her, what are you doing? And Kat explains that she's doing what everyone else does at a party. Get trashed. This is a weird time for her to start subscribing to what everyone else is doing.
Genuinely, truly.
And he calls her out on this and she scoffs and leaves to go roam the party with her shots. On the other side of the party, Cameron and Michael, who, again, are wearing full-on suits and button-downs. Cameron is looking for Bianca. He sees her coming down the stairs, tries to go up to her to say hi, but Bianca grabs her friend and pushes her in front of him and finally introduces her as Chastity. When Cameron tries to chat it up with Bianca, he tells her how beautiful she looks. Just as he's telling her this, Joey Donner shows up and swoops them both away, Bianca and Chastity. Cameron is left behind. In this moment is when he realizes Bianca has pretty much used him to get his sister a date so that she could go out with Joey and not him. The best thing to come out of that interaction was the look of utter disappointment on Bianca's face directly following that scene, as Joey Donner tries to impress her with his stupid modeling moves.
I'm conflicted about this situation. There's a very entitled boyness to Cameron. Like, I get what you, like, he's a sweetheart. He's the nicest boy in the whole movie. Yeah, because this is a movie of comically bad men. But he has this sense of entitlement towards Bianca. I get very frustrated with men who are like, she's leading me on. And it's like, she's not leading you anywhere. Sounds like you're allowing yourself to fucking be led on a path of your own fucking creation.
Maybe, but she is the one that said, oh, we could go on a date if you get a date for my sister. I'm with you on that for sure. But there definitely was a conversation that was, oh, I could date if. Yeah. And then they hatched this plan where
she's using him, he's using Patrick, Patrick is using Kat, Joey Donner's also using Patrick.
Gotta love a Shakespearean
just
adaptation.
So much deception. So much deception. Disgrace.
Oh my God. So now that Joey has literally bored her to death, Bianca starts to hate the party and starts avoiding Joey. Patrick, who has at this point kind of been protective of Kat this whole night, is following Kat around, who is now shit-faced. Biggie's Hypnotize starts playing over the speakers, and Kat decides to get up on a table and start dancing. Apparently, this dancing scene where she's on the table is the scene that got her the role in Save the Last Dance. Can you believe that?
No, I can't. No, I can't. But then when you see the big dance sequence from Save the Last Dance, you can kind of believe it.
Girl, we were gaslit by MTV into thinking.
Wow, she ate that. No, she fucking didn't. She took a single bite. She left the whole dish. Oh, man. I'm not here to shit on an 18-year-old Julia Stiles. Slay. If that's what got you one of the biggest roles of your young career, slay.
She's up there. Everyone is cheering her on until she bangs her head and falls off the table into Patrick's arms.
I will reiterate, whoever did the music for this absolutely fucking knocked it out of the park.
You're like, a perfect time for a hip-hop anthem.
Perfect time for a hip-hop anthem. No one loves Notorious B.I.G. more than upper middle-class white kids. Like, no one. So
in Seattle.
Like in fucking Washington.
In Washington. So Patrick comes to her rescue and starts to tend to her, afraid that she might have a concussion because all she wants to do is lay down. And one, she's drunk, and two, she just hit her head really hard.
He's not chill at all. Like, he's very anxious.
I am not going to be held responsible for this. So he's trying to keep her up, sits her somewhere. As he's dealing with Kat, Cameron comes over and takes Patrick aside to tell him the plan with Bianca is off. He's just realized she doesn't like him. She likes Joey. And the whole reason they were doing this is because Bianca wanted to date Joey. And I do love what Patrick says to him, which is, do you like her? If you like her, is she worth all of this trouble? That stood out to me because from my point of view, that's exactly what he's doing with Kat. To him, she's worth all of this trouble that he's putting himself through to check on her throughout the party, make sure she's okay. And yeah, we know Joey Donner paid him to take her out initially, but none of that required him to do everything that he's doing.
Right, like he's kind of going above and beyond.
So Patrick gives him this pep talk and tells him, don't let anyone tell you you don't deserve what you want.
I love a random pep talk. Patrick and Cameron literally did not know each other before like the week before. You know what I mean? So I'm like, where did this pep talk come from, Patrick?
Honestly, right? I think he genuinely sees Cameron and he's looking at him kind of like, you're 10 times the man that Joey Donner is. Mm-hmm. Fuck him. If you really like this girl and she's worth it, don't be down on yourself. Mm-hmm. And I can see Patrick delivering that because I feel like he has like this sense of like confidence that comes from nowhere other than just himself. So it makes sense to me. And Patrick goes back to babysitting Kat. She asks him like why he's taking care of her since you don't fucking care if I fall asleep or never wake up. And he's like, if you're gone, I'm going to have to date girls that actually like me.
Which is unfortunately so funny. It's also like delivered really well.
At this point, they're like across the street by some swings.
Kat is fucking barefoot. And I need everyone to know that.
She needed to take the shoes off to get up on the table.
Oh my God.
They have this moment on the swings where Patrick asks her, well, what the fuck is the deal with Joey Donner? And she's like, I hate him.
She starts to fall asleep and he kind of like slaps her face to try and keep her awake lightly. She wakes up, seems almost like sober, has like this moment of like clarity where she goes, oh, your eyes have a little green in them. It sounds very like genuine and sweet. And then she immediately just outpours the contents of that stomach, baby.
Ooh, he completely barfs on the ground, probably on his shoes. Something that bothered me about this scene is that he doesn't hold her hair back.
And Julia Stiles in this movie has got this like elbow length, gorgeous, thick, wavy blonde hair.
As she throws up, all her hair comes forward. And I'm like, no, you gotta hold her hair.
Nope.
And he doesn't. He just lets it hang. And I'm like, oh no. But then he pats her on the head. So
I was like, really? Just commit.
Just grab the hair, my guy. So the party starts to break up. Bianca and Chastity are outside. Joey comes out and invites Bianca to an after party. She's kind of had enough of this guy. She's like, oh, I gotta be home in 20 minutes. Wow, what a bummer. Like sarcastically. When she doesn't want to go, Chastity, her best friend, immediately volunteers. Like, oh, okay. I'm assuming that Bianca thought that Chastity would hang back with her. Chastity was like, oh, I don't gotta be home till 2 o'clock. I'll go with you.
Girl.
And leaves with Joey Donner and leaves her friend by herself at the party.
And the sentiment is just a universal, bitch, you snooze, you lose.
Now Bianca's standing there by herself. And who walks by her? Cameron. So she comes out of her face and asks Cameron to drive her home.
Okay, I could see how that's like uncool.
Patrick drives Kat home in her car and she mentions offhandedly wanting to be in a band when she hears a song on the radio. When Patrick's like, why don't you just do it? She mentions that her father would hate it. And he is kind of surprised by this. And it's like, I would have never pictured you as somebody who needed your father's permission. And she's like, oh, you think you know me, huh? And he's like, oh, I think I do a little bit. And she mentions that the only thing people know about her is that she's scary, which is interesting because that's what he feels that everybody thinks about him. And his reply to that is, I'm not a picnic myself. And so then they kind of have this moment where you can tell by her face, she feels like they've connected a little bit. He asks about her dad. She expresses that her dad wishes that she was somebody that she's not, more like Bianca, her sister. And Patrick says, I know everyone digs your sister, but she's without.
Without what?
To be without means not having or doing something of use. Purposeless, insignificant, unimportant.
Savage shit right there.
Kat looks over and it's like, wow, you've insulted my sister. Like, you could not have done anything sexier.
Love that. I don't understand anything.
I don't think it's very often that she hears somebody complimenting her over her sister. She's used to everyone telling her to be more like her sister, or her sister being the nicer one, or her sister being the one that everybody likes. And here, for the first time in this movie, is somebody putting her qualities over her sister's. So what do you do, baby?
You gotta kiss him.
She leans in after saying, "You're not as vile as I thought you were." Yo, and he doesn't kiss her back. Matter of fact, he says, maybe we should do this another time.
'Cause you're shit-faced and I care about consent.
Initially, you're like, oh shit, he's really not going to kiss her. And then you're like, but wait, she might feel better than she did before, but she's still under the influence. He doesn't want her affection in this way. And also, he doesn't say no. He just says, maybe we should do this another time.
Right.
But she gets pissed and she storms out of her own car with wounded pride and embarrassed.
I mean, I guess it makes sense with Kat's character and the way she responds to embarrassment in other parts of the movie.
Her response surprised me because I think up until now, we've seen her as somebody who's so passionate about having like your own agency. Instead of realizing she maybe crossed the line.
Or respecting Patrick's agency.
Exactly. She only feels rejection.
It's a very boy response. I could see a boy in this movie reacting that way to quote unquote rejection. And again, this isn't even rejection. This is like, hey, you're drunk. He doesn't say it explicitly. Let's do this another time. Not, right. Hey, gross, never. Not, never kiss me again, ew. No, it's like, let's do this another time. You know how you just vomited like 20 minutes ago? You know how you're drunk as fuck and you might have a concussion? Like, you know how there's probably like a little bit of vomit in your hair? Like, let's not do this now. Let's wait. And Kat's like, and like runs out of the car. It slams the fucking door. Like, that's such an insane response to a very reasonable request. Bitch, if you're gonna go off to college, you better get your fucking understanding clear about consent and setting boundaries.
Which she sets for herself consistently all the time. But as soon as somebody else does it in a way that she feels is against her, it's not okay. They're the problem. Patrick knows this shit's gonna come back and bite him in the ass. And as we see Patrick pull away in his own vehicle, Cameron's car pulls up with Bianca in the front seat. So he did drive her home. She kind of sits in the car awkwardly for a second. And he comes right out with it. He's like, so you never really wanted to go sailing with me, did you? You just wanted to go out with Joey. And then at that point, she kind of admits, yeah, I did. He's like, then that's all you had to say. Pretty much telling her you should have been honest from the beginning. Probably would have helped her anyway, just because he liked her.
My first watch of this movie, I just felt like he was acting so entitled. Like, I felt like the subplot between Bianca and Cameron was like a little bit less clear, because I was like, oh, it just seems like they're friends. And he's getting somebody to date her sister. Like, even though he does ask her out and she never really, she's like, oh, maybe. It's like she kind of does one of those. So I was like, oh, this isn't like real, right? Because she doesn't say like a yes, definitely get my sister a date. We'll go out Saturday night. No, she's like, ooh, like it's a, like she's liking the attention. Like that's like, oh, hey, we should hang out sometime. Yeah, totally. Girl, we're not hanging out. Like neither of us provided a place or a time. So and so that's why I'm like, this is casual, and him being that upset is like a rub me so wrong.
I hear what you're saying, but I disagree. I think his attraction to her is what started all of the wheels turning in this story. I can see from your point of view where it comes off like entitled. What he feels entitled to is her honesty. in this conversation while they're in the car is what he asked for. Like, you should have just told me instead of making me think that you were going to go out sailing with me or making me think that this would eventually end in us having a date. I understand him in that. And I actually appreciated that for his character to be kind of like the underdog. He sees her as superior to him, but he still felt like, no, I'm going to defend myself. He just came out with it and said, you know, you think that because you're popular and everyone loves you, that you can just treat anybody however which way. And he calls her selfish, which I thought was a little harsh.
And then she agrees.
As he's going off, because he does go off on a rant, I do feel like maybe he laid it on a little thick. And as he's going through this rant, she grabs his face and kisses him. Because that's supposed to make everything okay. This is what you wanted, right? Everything's fine now, right? We're good?
The 90s idea of romance, if I was in the middle of an impassioned rant and someone thought that was a good time to kiss me, to shut up, I think they'd get punched in the face. I don't even think I'd have control of my body. I think it would be a reflex. Like, if you don't get the fuck off of me while I'm trying to explain the dangers of late-stage capitalism to you.
Well, Cameron did not mind. She gets out of the car, and when she gets out of the car and you see in her face, she's like, oh shit, that was a little nicer than I thought it would be. Okay. He's in the car speechless, has not said a word, and then says, I'm back in the game, and starts slapping the steering wheel.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
So the kiss did fix it. The next day at school, Kat is in her English class, hurting. Still feeling the effects of that weekend. Joey's dumbass says some shit like, let's ask Kat how her weekend was. Ha ha ha. You know, and everybody remembers Kat was dancing on the table. Oh, I love Mr. Morgan's response where he's like, if it wasn't kicking you in the fucking nuts, I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. Yes, he will get kicked in the nuts, just not yet. I love it.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Mr. Morgan, as part of his lesson, goes on to rap a Shakespearean sonnet. You see a glimpse of engagement in these high schoolers. So the sonnet he recites is Shakespeare's sonnet 141. That says, in faith, I do not love thee with mine eyes. For thy and thee 1,000 errors note. So I notice everything I don't like about you. But 'tis my heart that loves what they despise. So I don't like you, but I love you. Essentially.
Reckless shit.
So he asks the class to come up with their own piece of writing inspired by that sonnet. And Kat actually compliments the assignment and says that she's excited about writing it. And Mr. Morgan is incredulous. He's like, no, I know you got something to say. Go for it. And she's like, no. I really like it. I can't wait to work on it. And he's like, get the fuck out of my class. What?
That made me so mad.
Because she's annoying when she's disagreeing with you and she's annoying when she's agreeing with you. So, you know, we got to kick her out because we don't like women in this movie. So later on that day, in the hallways of the high school, Cameron and Bianca make eyes at each other as they're passing each other in the hall. Ooh, I know what you did last night. Then we also see Michael trying to flirt with Mandela, which is Kat's friend. And we find out she is Shakespeare obsessed. She has Shakespeare in her locker. She claims that they're involved. So when I first saw this, I thought she was talking about like a secret admirer.
Nope. She's literally talking about William Shakespeare.
The dead
yes.
poet and playwright.
The bard himself.
Got it. He is trying to get information about Kat and how she's feeling. She's trying to get an update about Kat from her friend so that he can relay the message back to Patrick. From there, we cut to the school's field where we see Cameron and Patrick trying to talk about how shit went down with Kat the night before. Patrick apparently did something wrong by watching out for her all night and then not accepting a kiss from the drunk girl. Michael shows up with the intel, and the intel is that Kat hates his fucking guts with the fire of 1,000 suns. So we cut to archery class. This is a fancy school. where Bianca is practicing her archery as she's aiming. Joey Donner comes up behind her to ask her about prom. And I think she's genuinely trying to dodge him when she says, I can't go if Kat doesn't go. Like, she does not seem nearly as excited to hear him ask her out as she would have at the beginning of the movie. She's kind of rolling her eyes at him at this point. Joey's like, well, Kat is going. I'm taking care of it. And she's like, doesn't ask any questions. Okay. And from there, we cut to Joey going up to Patrick and offering him more money so that he would take Kat to the prom. Patrick's like, I'm no longer playing this game. Like, I'm not doing this with you. So Joey ups the stakes and gives him another $100. And Patrick begrudgingly grabs the $200. Here's my thing. We've gotten to this point of the movie. We're past the halfway mark. Patrick's obviously uncomfortable with this now at this point. He has started to like Kat. He wants to pursue her earnestly, and he feels skeezy about taking this money. At this point, the movie hasn't offered us any motivation as to why he's going to continue to do this for the money. What's the motivator? These extra $100 is what took him over the edge to agree to do this thing that he genuinely doesn't want to do and is uncomfortable with. At no point do we have a motivator. Is he trying to save up for something? Is he trying to go to college? Is he helping out a family member? What's the thing that's supposed to make this forgivable? They don't assign that to Patrick at all. If you give him a motivation, you as the viewer are able to empathize with it more. Like, oh, he's doing this shit for this sleazy guy, but he's trying to help his mom pay the bills. I don't know anything. We don't get none of that for Patrick. He just kind of begrudgingly takes these $200 and it's like, okay, fine. Mm-hmm. You're literally just counting on Heath Ledger's charm for us to root for Patrick at this point. Mm-hmm. Every time I watch this movie, I wish that they would have given Patrick either more of a backstory or at least a motivation for even taking part in this plot by Joey Donner. So at this bookstore where he makes it so that they casually see each other at the bookstore, he pretends that he's looking for a book by the name of The Feminine Mystique, which is a famous work of feminine literature. And she rebuffs him immediately. When she rebuffs him, he calls her out and says, you're not as mean as you think you are. And she claps back at him with, well, you're not as badass as you think you are. So here, they've kind of like, I've already seen you past this facade that you've put up. Both him and her. So now it's harder for them to keep up this facade with each other because they can both call each other out on it. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, well, somebody still got their panties in a twist. I fucking hate when people use this, especially men. I hate when men use this against women. It shit fucking drives me insane.
His accent also isn't sure what he's doing when he delivers this line. And so it comes out like half Scottish. Like, it's like, well, someone's got their panties in a twist. And it's like, what? Who said that? Like, where are we? You get what I'm saying? Where are we from? What are we doing? Where are the panties? Why are they in a twist?
She replies with, don't for 1 minute think that you had any effect on my panties whatsoever. And he kind of cocks his head and looks at her and goes like, oh yeah, well, what did I have an effect on? Calling her out because she's the one that fucking tried to kiss him and then got mad when he didn't reciprocate. Obviously, she's angry about that and turns around and leaves. So back at school, Patrick, no bratwurst, is at the lunch line with Michael and Cameron. They're all talking about how they're going to get him back in the game with Kat. And something that Cameron says is, sacrifice yourself on the altar of dignity and even the score, which honestly I loved. I thought was hilarious. He's pretty much like, yo, she feels embarrassed. You wounded her pride. You kind of have to lay yourself out, put yourself out there and even it out. So what do we see in the next scene? We see Patrick going up to some person and giving them some cash. And then we cut to one of the most iconic scenes of this movie. One of the most iconic scenes in a rom-com in the past 2 decades. We see Patrick pick up a microphone, turning up the volume. We cut to the field during Kat's soccer practice. And Patrick starts to sing, "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You." I've read that Heath Ledger actually picked this song for this scene. And then the marching band joins in, and you notice that the guy that he gave the cash to is the conductor of the marching band. This scene makes the whole movie, and I think it's the scene that made the world fall in love with Heath Ledger. He set out to put a smile on Kat's face, and he absolutely did that. You can definitely tell with this performance that he captured Kat just as he's captured the rest of the rom-com world.
I got to that scene and I was like, all right, I think maybe I get it. Like, I think maybe I get this movie now. This scene, I understand why it endures. It's so endearing. He's so charming. This is the most charismatic. Something about him being an imperfect singer is also endearing. Like, the fact that he's just not like belting out Broadway vocals out here, like, that also really helps, I think, the viewer, because you're like, you're just some guy. Like, you're just some guy singing a song to a girl. Like, there's just something like very sweet about that. Obviously, he has ulterior motives like money and Joey Donner, but this is him again going above and beyond for Kat's attention. It is very sweet. And she is taken by this. I mean, she's playing her springtime soccer and is looking up at the concrete bleachers with everyone else and is like, oh my God, my life has changed forever. We cut from that scene to a scene in detention. We see the detention teacher, who also doubles as the soccer coach, and he confiscates some stoned, paranoid kid's weed, like, from his desk. As he's, like, walking around the detention classroom and, like, checking up on the other kids, he also confiscates some kid's Cheetos. Because he's clearly gonna get stoned and get the munchies. Kat enters the detention room. She's there to try and distract the detention teacher, also known as her soccer coach, and break Patrick out of detention. Cute, right? That's so like Breakfast Club of you. She keeps trying to capture her soccer coach in conversation so that he doesn't notice Patrick like sneaking out a window. This is another very famous scene from this movie that I hate because it is stupid and unnecessary and uncharacteristic, and maybe that's the point. Maybe Kat is softening up and she really likes Patrick, and so she does things that are out of character, but she flashes her fucking soccer coach.
I hate this scene.
I hate this scene.
Flashes him and he just looks.
What the fuck?
He just looks.
There's no further commentary on this. There's no, I think we need to call your parents. There's no visit to Miss Perky's office. You know what I'm saying? Like, she flashes the coach and then goes, cool, thanks. Anyway, I'm gonna go now. The detention classroom starts applauding for her. I hate this fucking scene. I don't care that it was the 90s. I hate it. And like, you could not wait the maybe 45 extra minutes that Patrick was going to be in detention.
Honestly, I feel like if you're trying to depict Kat is acting uncharacteristically because she likes him, her just waiting for him after detention would have been uncharacteristic.
Would have been enough.
That would have been uncharacteristic. She was waiting around for a man?
Kat Stratford.
Exactly.
Of course not. Like, that would be too fucking logical. That would make too much goddamn sense. I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to be chill. I feel like the more that I talk about this movie, like the angrier about it I get. And I don't want to do that. You get what I'm saying? I don't want to be a shrew about this movie. It was a pleasant watch. It was totally fine. But once you're watching it and you're thinking about it, that's when I start getting angry. After this fucking detention scene, we cut to a scene where Kat and Patrick are out on the water in the bay in a pedal boat. He thanks her for breaking him out of detention. He's kind of like, how did you do it? Like, how'd you distract him enough to get me out of detention? And she's like, my dazzling wits. And, you mean your dazzling tits. Oh, yeah.
So what's funny about that is that in the scene, he's looking back at her. He knew what she did. He was seeing if she would say it.
Oh my God, I didn't clock that. I thought he hadn't seen it.
And he does bring it up later on. So yeah. He knew.
They're having a conversation where they're kind of opening up to each other a little bit more. They're a little bit more vulnerable, I guess, at this point. Kat has showed someone her boobs to get him out of detention. So I feel like that's kind of a real catalyst moment for them. He asks her kind of like, hey, like, what's your deal? What's all this, right? Like the way you are. And she tells him like, well, I just don't like living up to other people's expectations. Patrick's like, oh, so you like to disappoint people. You like to do a preemptive disappointment. You want to keep their expectations of you low so that they never expect more from you. She kind of like hesitantly agrees with that. And he goes, well, like if you're trying to be a disappointment, you've messed up. And she's like, why? And he goes, because you've never disappointed me.
Ooh.
They get back to the shore and there's like kind of like a fun park, a little bit of an amusement park, and there's like a paintballing area. Patrick's like, oh, I dare you to like go in with me to the paintballing area. It's like this sweet little montage where they like are paintballing each other. They're having so much fun. And of course they end up like wrestling each other to the ground and then they make out.
What's great about that scene, and I think what that scene tries to communicate, it's like, this is uninhibited fun. You've never seen them this happy throughout the whole movie. You've never seen them laughing or smiling this much throughout the whole movie.
The next scene after this, we cut to Kat's house where she and Patrick pull up in his car and walk onto her porch to like hang out for a little bit. As they're coming out of the car, they're doing like a true and false. They're asking each other like, okay, here's a rumor that I heard about you. Is this true? Because there are so many rumors about both of them that aren't true. Some also have a grain of truth. During this interaction where they're on Kat's porch, this is where we learn that Patrick is Australian because she asks him about his accent. He's like, I lived in Australia until I was 10 with my mom. Then I moved here. They have a cute moment as they're settling down on the porch. They're like sitting on one of the steps next to each other where he calls her sweet and sexy. Here are things that people don't know about you, that you're sweet and you're sexy. If I was 18, this would knock me out of my shoes.
He like kisses one side of her neck and says, you're sweet. And then goes to the other side of her neck and says, you're sexy. Whew! Okay.
In the middle of a third kiss that he is giving her, he asks her to go to prom with him. Oops! I almost forgot this shit is a scam. Obviously, I'm aware as the viewer that his feelings are not a scam, but there is an end game here, and he's meant to deliver. And she's like, no, I don't want to go to prom. And he's like, come on, like, just go to prom with me. Like, he immediately gets very insistent. And she digs in her heels, which is honestly exactly what I would do. And she's like, why are you pushing this? What's the matter with you? What's in it for you? And that like triggers him, I think, because he's guilty. And so he kind of lashes out and gets kind of angry and defensive. And he's like, wow, you're fucking crazy. You need therapy. You know that? Like,
oh my God, that shit pissed me off. Like, oh, so now because she's trying to boundary, she needs therapy?
You want to talk about mamas.
Oh my God.
He said you need therapy. And I was like, and the movie's over for me. She doesn't go to prom. He never sees her again. The movie's done. She goes to Sarah Lawrence. She goes to the East Coast for school. And that's it. That's the movie, guys. I'm fucking done here. Like, I was ready to set fire to that gorgeous castle. I was pissed. And then he pulls out a cigarette to smoke because this whole time he's been fucking lying about not being a smoker anymore because he's just trying to get her to like him. And she takes it and knocks it out of his hand, gets up angrily, storms inside her house. Again, I'm like, this is not good writing. The evolution of that fight was not good writing. I feel like that's not how a person reacts. Like, if he had just been, I'm charming and smooth, I can charm her into going to the prom with me. I don't need to get super defensive and fucking weird, but the defensiveness, I believe, is meant to be brought on by his guilt about the entire situation. But that just ends up coming out as like I'm gonna say something kind of verbally abusive to you.
Well, yeah, no, then he gets defensive because he feels like he's been exposed a bit. And to recover, he defaults to his known persona, which is to be a jerk.
I guess I just feel like his outburst, how quickly he gets angry, that's the thing to me that like pushes the boundaries of realistic behavior, because I'm thinking even if he's going back to his persona of like kind of weird douchey guy, like I think his cohesion as a character is hard to track for the viewer. Even if there were visual indicators, even if all of the dialogue was the same, but when he's having a vulnerable moment, he has X color on. He's doing X thing with his hair.
Well, I think the cigarette is also an indicator of he's defaulted to facade Patrick.
And isn't that funny? Like that he was a smoker and then it's like, for you to be with this girl, you have to stop smoking. And he just immediately ditches smoking.
And you know what? The movie doesn't show you him smoking at all.
Until he's mad again.
As soon as this little bubbly moment that they're having pops, her guard comes up automatically and so does his. They both default to how they are to other people. That cigarette comes right back the first time you see it since the beginning of the movie. And what does? She fucking takes it and leaves. She feels vulnerable, he feels called out. She feels suspicious, and he feels guilty.
See, yeah, it's a lot better now. I feel like if we sat together, we watched it, you narrated the whole thing to me. Nadhya, this is what all the characters are doing. Like,
I think this is how we started this podcast.
I think it was. So, moving on in that way. After that altercation between Patrick and Kat, we cut to a scene where Bianca and Cameron are studying French in the library at school, and he's like genuinely trying to help her study. Like, he's doing like a je m'appelle type basics of French. She breaks into like a complicated sentence, a low-key fluent in French. When is he gonna ask me out? When are you finally going to ask me out? Why don't you take that French textbook and shove it up your ass? And then she like gets up in a huff and storms off away from their tutoring session. And Cameron's just like looking through the book. He's trying to find out what she said. His book has a big ass hole in the middle. Chaotic. This is so chaotic.
I'm mad they kept the book with the whole movie.
I kind of love that they kept it. I thought it was so funny. After this scene, we cut to Mandela, Kat's friend, her Shakespeare-obsessed friend, at her locker, opening it to find a Shakespeare/Renaissance fair type dress with a note with a poem on it written in calligraphy. It's signed William S. And Mandela's like, oh my God, William Shakespeare's going to take me to prom. And it's like, hell yeah, Mandela, I love that for you. We cut after that to the Stratford home where Mr. Stratford is quote unquote working out on the back deck. This is so funny. He literally does 7 assisted crunches and then goes, yeah, I think I'm good. Bianca approaches him and asks if she can attend the prom. He reiterates that if Kat isn't going, neither is Bianca. Like, come on, girl, get with the program, right? The rules have been the same. Dad's like, what are kids even doing at prom? And Bianca's like, we dance, we kiss, like, we have a good time. Like, the kids just hang out. It's fine. And he's like, listen, little lady, I'm down. I've got the 411, and I don't want you getting jiggy with some guy, no matter how dope his ride is.
That was funny.
Larry Miller was perfectly cast. I cannot imagine anyone else playing their dad. He's superb. She is like, you're fucking insane. And she leaves in a huff as her dad says, Mama didn't raise no fool, with perfect delivery. Gorgeous. So we cut to Bianca dejectedly watching Real World Seattle in her bedroom on like one of those tiny little TVs with the fat ass. The fat ass. With like the dome screen and the fat ass. Kat knocks on her door to come talk to her about prom, and Bianca's like a massive brat about it. She tells Kat, I'm the only sophomore that got asked to go to prom, and I can't even go because you don't feel like it. Kat's kind of like, okay, let me open up to you about some stuff. Did I ever tell you that Joey and I used to date? Clearly not, bitch. Bianca's like, no, you're lying. And Kat's like, no, it's true. Like, Kat used to be one of the popular kids, right? Like in middle school, early high school. And when she was in 9th grade, she and Joey dated for a month. And it was right around the time that their mom left. And so she was kind of going through a lot. She implies that she and Joey had sex right after their mom left. And when she told Joey that she didn't want to have sex anymore, he dumped her. And Kat swore that she would never do anything again just because everyone else was doing it. Because, when they were 14, all of her friends were having sex. That's what everybody else was doing.
Or that's what she thought everybody else was doing.
Exactly.
That's what everybody else was saying they were doing.
And Kat says Bianca never found out, and nobody else ever found out. Kat tells her, I warned Joey that if he ever told anyone, I would tell the entire cheerleading squad how small his dick is.
And I'm glad Bianca then goes, yeah, but why didn't I know? Right? Like, I know why nobody else knew. But
why didn't you tell me? I'm your sister. And Kat says, well, I wanted you to make up your own mind. And then the conversation kind of goes a little left for me, right? Because I wanted you to make up your own mind. And Bianca's like, okay, like, that's fucking stupid. Why did you just let daddy keep me hostage? You knew what was at stake.
She's calling out, you supposedly want me to make my own choices, but at the same time, you're kind of in control of the choices that I can make because I'm not allowed to do anything without you.
I think Bianca's justified in being upset. I'm like, it makes sense that you're upset about the dishonesty.
What do you mean you wanted her to find out for herself? So you wanted Joey to
also
potentially take advantage of her so that she would learn for herself?
Like, that's bizarre.
I wouldn't call that a girl's girl.
But in any direction, I don't call it a girl's girl because Kat says, I guess I thought I was protecting you. Bianca lashes out. You thought you were protecting me by not letting me experience anything for myself. I'm not stupid enough to repeat your mistakes.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
If this is the horror movie, Bianca dies. You know what I'm saying? Listen, do I make some of the rules? This is half of my podcast. This is where Bianca dies. I'm not stupid enough to repeat your mistakes. That's a wild thing to say to a human being. I found that so wildly disrespectful. I am a former teen.
Same.
I am a former child. I'm a former teen girl. One could argue I'm a current teen girl. What a wild thing to just say to a person. Okay, it's a movie. Fine. They're white. Fine. You know? Bianca then kicks Kat out of her room. I hate their relationship. There's no, I'm sorry that happened to you with Joey.
There's no empathy there on Bianca's end at all.
We see Kat in her room. Now, after this altercation, she's frustrated. She looks out her window to see a very dejected looking Bianca sulking in the yard. Just based on Kat's expression, we can tell she's like resolving to something. We cut to Mr. Stratford in the evening. This is kind of a funny scene because Larry Miller is balding. Like at this point, he's mostly bald on top. And he's watching TV in the living room with an ad about like spray on hair. And as he's watching the ad, he goes, like he's like pondering buying it. And Kat whizzes down the stairs and says, "Bye, Dad, I'm going to prom." And he doesn't even look up. He doesn't even react. He just says, "Funny, sweetie." And then he hears the door shut. As Kat came down the stairs, we saw that this bitch was dressed. She is in a formal pale blue gown with like a matching stole. Her hair is like so 90s. It's in this gelled up updo with all these curls that are collected around the crown of her head. And she is wearing her mother's string of pearls.
She's wearing her mother's string of pearls that we see Bianca wearing earlier on in the movie during the conversation where they're talking about how differently they view their outward perception of each other. I thought that was a really cool way of the movie showing you
they come to some type of truce.
Also, this is an instance of the movie showing you they're rubbing off on each other a little bit. Or maybe they're accepting aspects of each other that they would criticize earlier in the movie. And now they're accepting those characteristics of each other and embracing those characteristics of each other.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was going to say the pearl necklace must mean that off screen they've had some type of interaction where it's like, here, you're going to wear this.
And it's so sad to not have seen that. I feel like that would have been so valuable.
Absolutely. Like, I love the detail of that, but I would have loved to see it even more. Like, I just feel like their characters deserved more from their interactions with each other than what we got on screen.
The movie not giving us that interaction between them
That's a miss. After Kat very quickly exits the home to go to prom, Mr. Stratford sees Bianca walk past the living room in a two-piece bright pink prom dress and stops her before she hits the door. And I just want to say, like, you gotta love, like, a pioneering fashionista. A girl who's like, ooh, a two-piece prom dress. I'm gonna fucking hit this shit. I love the audacity of the outfit, and I wish I liked the execution better. Do you feel me? You feel what I'm saying?
So you're like, she tried, but
shoot for the moon, land among the stars, baby. She landed among the stars. The top is like really poorly fitted and wrinkly and bad and like shiny. And then the skirt is like sitting at the high hip, not quite at the waist. And it's like just tulle. Like it's just like a big skirt of tulle.
I think you make the top fitted and crop it more and then bring the skirt up to the natural waist.
And it's chef's kiss. It's perfect. Bianca walks past her dad. Now he's like, where are you going? And she's like, I'm going to prom. And he's like, that everyone's been saying that word lately. Going to prom. And in this moment, Cameron rings the doorbell as Bianca hurriedly explains to her dad, Kat found a prom date, so Bianca's allowed to go. We cut to prom, baby. And this prom is fucking jumping. I mean, jumping. Ladies, leave your man at home. Club is full of ballers. And their pockets full grown. So this prom, honestly, I'll go to this prom tonight. It looks like everyone's having a fucking great time. It is packed. They have maybe the only good live prom band any high school prom has ever had. They're doing like a ska version of Shout, which is like kind of fun. We see Kat arrive to prom solo, and she runs into Patrick, who's just like standing outside the doors. Like, is he waiting for her? Did they talk about this?
Waiting for her. They didn't make that very clear, but he's there, and you would assume he wouldn't have gone if
she wasn't going
about it, because that was his date.
Right. So I'm like, okay, unless he just went hoping she would show up. Like, what is this, the 40s?
Maybe.
So her prom dress and full beat, very 1999. As I mentioned, she's got the slick back updo with the crown of curls at the top of her head. She's wearing the mom's pearls. Her dress is this kind of pale, almost like denimish looking blue with straps. It's very simple.
Really pretty on her.
Really pretty. She has the perfect coloring for it. It's like a sheath shape.
Oh my God, this dress reminds me of my 8th grade dinner dance dress.
I was literally going to say,
Paola. And so does the hairstyle.
Paola looked very similar at her 8th grade dinner dance, which was in what, 2002? Paola's 8th grade dinner dance, which was like our middle school's version of 8th grade prom. So Patrick is in a tuxedo with a white shirt and no tie, no vest, can't see a cummerbund. Like, he has the tuxedo shirt with the tuxedo jacket. And Kat apologizes to Patrick for doubting his motives when he asked her to be his date to prom. I'm fuming.
That one didn't feel good. And at this moment, you knew the reveal was not going to be pretty.
No, it was going to be real, real bad. And of course it was going to happen at prom, because God forbid anyone has a good time. So from here, we leave them kind of chatting outside of the main area for the prom. We cut back to the Stratford house, where a fully decked out, he is wearing a white tuxedo jacket, black vest, black bow tie, fully decked out Joey Donner approaches the door to the Stratford home to pick up Bianca. Girl, you ain't picking up shit. She out of there. She gone.
She's gone.
And Mr. Stratford just closes the door in his face.
He doesn't say anything. But he knows who Joey Donner is. Like, he's heard the Joey Donner lore, right?
He probably paid for his car repairs. Back at prom, we see Kat and Patrick link arms, it's very cute, and walk into the dancing area where Kat and Bianca see each other, make eye contact, and smile. Mandela, Kat's literal only friend, comes up to her in her like Shakespearean Ren Fair gown and asks if they've seen William. Girl.
William S.
Both Kat and Patrick like look over her shoulder and like point at the stage, and Mandela turns toward the stage and sees Cameron's friend Michael, also dressed in his Ren Fair realness, giving William S. And Mandela is like elated as he walks off the stage, and he greets her with "Milady," and she responds, "Good sir." As everyone is just having a great time at this prom, Kat's favorite song, "Cruel to Be Kind" by her favorite band starts playing. So this is one of the songs that she was dancing to at Club Skunk. She looks up and the band is there performing live. And the lead singer comes off the stage and like walks up to her, and it's so cool. And she's shocked. And Patrick tells her, "I called in a favor."
Who is Patrick? What is this guy's backstory? How does he have these connections?
What favor is this?
What favor is this?
Do?
He's got a guy? Oh, I got a guy.
I got a guy. He's got a guy.
But I think this confirms for me that he works at Club Skunk. They never clarify, but he walks into Club Skunk. They know him by name, and the guy's like, "What are you doing here tonight?" Almost like, "Oh,
you're not off. On shift." Yeah.
Then he calls in this favor, quote unquote, and we know that this same band was at Club Skunk. So he either has some real connections at Club Skunk or he worked there.
I like that theory. Kat is like, she's on the moon about this, and this would fucking get me. In this moment, that Kat is like, ooh, so taken. Patrick kisses her and pulls her into dance, and all is well, and that's when you know some shit is about to go down. We cut to Bianca in the bathroom, where she runs into Chastity, also known as Gabrielle Union. Chastity, who's now an asshole, and announces that Joey Donner picked her up as his prom date. And she tells Bianca, like, well, you didn't think you were the only sophomore that got asked to prom, right? And it's like, you only got asked to prom because Bianca was unavailable.
Honestly, though. But also, like, when did she become this cunty and why? Like, what did Bianca do to her?
And I'm like, cunty? It's like, I reserve that as like a good word.
Right.
And I'm like, you're not being cunty. You're being a bitch. And like, she says, Joey only wanted one thing from you, like implying that all he wanted was like her virginity. And it's like, he probably only wants the same thing from you. I'm very confused. Why is anyone okay with going out with this guy? If this was a video podcast, like the way I'm scrunching up my face and my forehead, I'm like, who's paying for my Botox, you know?
One day.
Thank you. One day I'll get Botox.
No, I said one day will be a video podcast.
Oh, I meant Botox.
Bitch, I'm like, what are we saving these pennies for? It's not
Botox.
for your Botox.
Damn
no.
it, Paola. Fine. That's a tax return conversation. But anyway, we see Patrick swinging Kat around the dance floor like a damn rag doll. He tells her where he was the year before. He was in Milwaukee taking care of his sick grandfather. So that's a very sweet thing to learn about him. Again, this is like another indication that his guard has come down. He's telling her all of these kind of like real, authentic things about himself. Joey approaches Patrick pissed, pokes his finger in his chest, asking why Bianca is at prom with Cameron. I didn't pay you to take Kat out so some little punk could date Bianca. Kat, of course, hears this and looks super betrayed. She's not waiting. She's not waiting for more details. She goes up to Patrick and she goes, nothing in it for you, huh? And storms out. Michael and Mandela see this happen. And they go get Cameron. Michael, as he gets Cameron, says, the shit hath hitteth the fan.
The faneth.
The faneth.
That's because he's supposed to be Shakespeare. It gets me every time.
Joey immediately, Michael approaches him to kind of like calm down the situation. Joey immediately throws him down. And then Cameron approaches him. Just like, dude, you're acting like a real dick. And he punches Cameron in the face and starts shit talking. Bianca pulls up and sucker punches Joey's bitch ass.
Yes. Oh, that was such a good moment.
It was so fucking satisfying. Like, really gives it to him. And he immediately shouts, shit, Bianca, I'm shooting a nose spray ad tomorrow.
Oh, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Hey, dog, it sounds like you ain't shooting shit. She punches him again and then knees him in the balls. Before she punches him the second time, she says, that was for my date. Punches him again. That was for my sister. And then knees him in the balls. And that was for me.
I love it.
Good for you, girl. And she leaves him writhing on the floor.
It's like an empowering moment for her. Mm-hmm. She was so set on wanting to be liked by other people that you could have never imagined her making a scene like this where she's punching the most popular guy in school in the face. But this is her finally defending her sister, standing up for Cameron, who she let down in the middle of the movie, and standing up for herself. And it's also another way that at the conclusion of the movie it's showing you this is Kat rubbing off on Bianca as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I love that full circle moment.
Outside of the dancing area, Kat is yelling at Patrick, who's running after her, trying to explain, I didn't care about the money, Kat. I cared about you. Sorry, buddy, you're not winning this fight, okay? And she looks at him and says, you are so not who I thought you were. And he pulls her in and tries to kiss her.
He tried to pull that Bianca. It didn't work.
And what? Like overwhelm her with lust? She'll forget about being mad at me if I kiss. Surely, I'm Heath Ledger. No, like, I hated it.
Nope, doesn't work. Sorry, guy.
She pushes him off and runs away. The camera pulls out. We see Patrick watching her run down the stairs. Bianca is standing a few feet behind him. So she's watched this entire interaction and again has done nothing.
She just lets her go. This can be a moment of her understanding that maybe her sister doesn't want any interaction. She wants to not be bothered. She's embarrassed and she's not going to want to talk about it right now.
Sure. No, totally. When you know someone well, you're kind of like, right? Like, I think if it was me and I'm running away from a situation, you're like, I need to give Nadja like an hour and then I'll talk to her. I get that. But the relationships between the women of this movie, like, really, really disappointed me throughout the entirety of the movie. I was left like, oh, this is supposed to be like feminist, right? Like, this is supposed to be some big feminist movie and none of the women like each other in it. Like, I hate that.
Or respect each other, or
right.
The movie itself doesn't respect women. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
It really blurs the lines between, does the movie respect women, or are we trying to make some kind of larger statement about the way women treat each other? I don't know. That makes it even harder for me because I'm like, I don't know if this movie likes women. It's supposed to.
I don't know. The protagonist is supposed to be a feminist, but it's also she's made to be like the shrew and like nobody likes her.
She's made to be like hateable.
Yeah.
Kat kind of sucks like a lot of the time. And she sucks in a way that like I understand that I'm sympathetic to. Bianca sucks in a way that I'm not as sympathetic to. But like,
yeah, you don't feel the love for women. You don't feel like this movie is standing up for women, and I don't get that.
And it doesn't have to do that, I guess, because it's a fucking teen rom-com. They're adapting a fucking Shakespeare play or whatever. But you're gonna have a character like Kat at the top, and you're just gonna vilify her for the entire movie. You're just gonna have other people shitting on her. Very few, if any, people defending her. And then it's kind of like, and then she's the same girl. And it's like, what's the arc? Anyway, we'll get there. We'll talk about it. So
yeah,
we cut after this devastating prom reveal to what we can assume is the next day. Kat is sitting on the porch drawing in a sketchbook. And that's fun. That's a fun character detail that her character likes to draw. When Bianca approaches her as she's drawing and hands her a mug of tea wordlessly. This is the most sisterhood I've seen in this entire fucking movie. She says, I don't think I thanked you for going last night, but it really meant a lot to me. You didn't thank her last night? Okay. But you're thanking her now, and that's what matters. Fine. Cameron is there with Bianca. He's there to pick her up.
They're going sailing finally.
Bianca asks if Kat wants to join them on their little sailing day trip. And Kat's like, nah, dog. You guys have fun. As Bianca and Cameron are walking away, Cameron asks, hey, is she okay? And Bianca replies like, I don't know. But they leave. Cameron not feigning innocence, but like, you know you played a part in this, right?
Well, why do you say he's feigning innocence?
Because it's like, is she okay? No, you fuck. She liked this guy and then found out someone was paying him to date her.
Yeah.
You're not gonna feel okay after that. And so his whole confusion, I'm like, oh, you're an idiot. Like,
I don't think he's confused. I think he's asking like an update. Like, how is she feeling?
It's just, this whole thing is weird. And I feel like his complicity in the entire scheme is like kind of like forgotten a little bit, which I don't like. It's like, you are also accountable for this. If anything, you are very accountable for this, for fucking orchestrating it. As Kat is sitting on the banister of the porch, Mr. Stratford approaches her and asks where Bianca's going. Again, this is like the least disciplinarian, strict dad I've ever seen. And he asks how the dance was the night before. Kat tells him that the best part of the dance was when Bianca punched out some guy. And their dad is like, ooh, I'm impressed. In a very earnest moment, he says, you know, fathers don't like to admit it when their daughters are capable of running their own lives and they become the spectators.
Yeah.
That's a great line. It's a great delivery. He's great.
And then he says, like, you've had me on the bench for a long time.
He tells Kat he sent the first check for her college tuition to Sarah Lawrence, the school that she was accepted to in New York. She wraps him in a hug, and he's clearly like this level of affection is like unfamiliar to him, and he like chokes up a little bit, just like holds on to her arm, which is like wrapped around his neck. It's like a really, really sweet moment. Dad moments in movies just always get me, obviously. Like, they used to get me before my dad died. They get me twice as hard after. So we cut to English class where the Shakespearean sonnet assignment is due, and Kat is the first volunteer to read hers out loud. Everybody like groans, which I fucking hate. Mr. Morgan says, oh, here we go.
It really is annoying.
Sir, you're the fucking teacher.
Are we trying maybe using the characters in the movie to like portray like this is how society reacts to strong-willed women? Maybe that's the commentary.
Yeah, maybe.
This is how society acts to women like Kat or who feel identified with Kat. You always feel attacked. You don't feel accepted by anyone. You always have to be on the defensive because everyone's always undercutting you
Talking
and
over
coming.
you.
Exactly.
It really bothers me that they put the brunt of this exasperation with Kat on a teacher of color.
We see it from everyone, but yes, the fact that he's the main educator, because we see it from Miss Percy, we see it from the dad, we see it from other adults in the movie, but he's the one that gets the most screen time with this behavior towards Kat. One thing I will say is that with everything that's happened, and what in the movie is the past couple of days, I felt like it was so brave for Kat to volunteer to read her poem out loud, knowing that she wrote it about the boy that's in her class.
Who is there watching her read it. Oh, that's so vulnerable.
The message I take from that is everyone is constantly trying to shut her down or trying to make her feel like she needs to diminish herself. And she's not. She's going to put herself out there every single time. And I respect that about her character.
I think she has a lot of integrity and guts. So we see in this classroom, as Kat is like getting up to volunteer, we get a shot of Joey Donner wearing sunglasses to hide his fucked up nose. And Mr. Morgan makes him take his sunglasses off in class. And his nose is jacked up. His face is bruised. It's just funny. I love seeing a character like Joey like fucking get his comeuppance. Kat stands at the very front of the class and begins reading her iconic sonnet. This is one of those scenes that has stuck in pop culture. Heath Ledger running around the concrete bleachers singing I Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. Julia Stiles reading this sonnet in front of the class as the camera pulls up tight to her face. These are iconic scenes from the same fucking movie. So they're doing stuff right. There's just a lot of...
There's some downfalls. There are
some. Just a few. I don't think I've mentioned them at all, but just a few. Kat reads her iconic sonnet, which, as we all know, is about Patrick. Because as soon as she starts,
her starting to cry adds so much to this scene. It's universally known that this was unscripted. She wasn't meant to cry in this scene. It just came out of her as she's reciting this poem. They just kept filming. What I loved about learning that was improvised is that when they cut to Heath Ledger, he's tearing up as well. So he's taking cue from Julia Stiles and becoming emotional at her becoming emotional. And so something that's not as well known, but I feel like it's becoming more well known now, is that at the time, there was like a lot of rumors that they might have been dating on set, right? In reality, she was dating Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh my God.
During the filming of this. In an interview, she says that she had him in mind when she was reciting the poem. A part of the poem that stood out to me is when she says, I hate when you drive my car. Like, it's such an odd thing to be specific about, but it just lets you know it's definitely about Patrick.
Kat runs out of the classroom, leaving everyone, including Mr. Morgan, in stunned silence. Cut from there to Kat walking to her car in the parking lot. As she goes to the driver's side seat, a brand new guitar that we learn is a Fender Stratocaster is sitting in her front seat. As she grabs it, Patrick appears behind her and he says, with like that big anime smile on his face, nice, isn't it? And she's just like, what did you like? And he says, I came into some cash recently because some asshole paid me to take out this really great girl, but I messed up. I ended up falling for her.
Oh, it's sweet. You stop that right now. It's sweet.
And she says, really? And he tucks her hair behind her ear and kisses her. And after they kiss, she tells him, "You can't just buy me a guitar every time you screw up, you know." And he replies, "Yeah, but then there's always a bass and the drums and maybe even a tambourine." Ha ha ha.
Ha ha, for all the times I'm gonna mess up.
All is fixed. Everything's resolved. The story's wrapped up and we're all feeling perfect. The camera completely zooms out from the parking lot under the song "I Want You to Want Me," which is originally by Cheap Trick and is being covered by Kat's favorite band in the movie, Letters to Cleo. The camera swings around over the roof of the high school where the band, Letters to Cleo, is playing the song.
How did they get up there?
Dude, no practical effects for that. Like, they were up there. And the helicopter with the camera was just swirling around them.
Just fighting for their life up there.
They were so afraid that they thought they were going to die. They joked, like, if we fall off this fucking roof, this movie's cooked. This guy's never going to work again, this director, who just blew, you know, however many hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a fucking helicopter to shoot us on the roof.
I love how this ended.
Oh my God, it's so good! It is like the dopest music video you could fucking imagine. It's great. Like, I think there's a lot to like about this movie, but I really have a lot of issues with it. Some things could have been lost in the edit. Some things could have been, you know, from the studio. A lot of things could have happened that maybe cut out meaningful parts of the screenplay or changed, you know, certain things that people wanted to have happen or whatever. Mm-hmm. I get that. So it's not that it's entirely on even the director or even the screenwriters. But yeah, I think a lot of parts of this movie, especially with regard to like feminism, intersectionality, those things really disappoint me. The relationships between the women really disappoint me. Even some of the representations of the women, like, and their archetypes and who they're supposed to represent, I find them incredibly reductive.
I absolutely agree with you on those points. I think one of my biggest dislikes with this movie is really how you have this heroine who's a strong-willed, independent, self-proclaimed feminist in the movie, and then you treat her like shit the whole time. Mm-hmm. Everyone hates her. So what is the movie really trying to communicate about strong-willed women? And sure, I can see it as maybe like a commentary on how the rest of society typically treats women who are seen as outspoken and an inconvenience because they're, you know, in your face or they're bringing shit up that is fucked up. But then at the same time, you make all your female relationships suck. So
all the female relationships suck and all of their interactions are about men. Honestly, to an extent, even the negative ones, because it's like you could boil down Bianca's issue with Kat as you're getting in the way of me pursuing men.
Got it. I see what you mean. Like, all the contention between the women revolves around relationships with men.
Yes. Even if it's like one or two layers deep, men are at the core of every conflict. Even when Kat's walking with Mandela and she's like, "Oh, prom's dumb," they're not having a fucking conversation about Y2K and like 90s consumerism. Then Mandela's like, "I just wish I had a date to prom. I'd love to go." And it's like,
which is fine.
That's fair.
Which is fine.
And she's allowed to want that. But it's like, again, even that innocuous interaction then becomes about, I want to go with a date because I want to go with a man.
They can't go with each other because God forbid you like hint that, you know.
God forbid you go with your fucking friends like I did. God forbid you go the homophobia. The homophobia in this movie is so loud. Like,
I don't think so. It's very quiet. But it's there. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not overt, but it's there if you're paying attention.
They're not saying like the F slur left and right, but like,
yeah. It's loud when you pick up on it for sure. When you're like, oh goodness.
Yeah, like, oh, she's not a Katie Lang fan. She doesn't harbor same-sex tendencies.
Exactly. Like, okay. I mean, not that they say that with like disgust, right? It's like they say it matter-of-factly.
They don't seem to say it with ill intent, but
right.
You know that the time period, people were saying things like that pejoratively. Right. Like, people were like, "Are you a Katie Lang fan? And again, it could be social commentary. Maybe I'm a dummy, right? Maybe I'm missing the fantastic, well thought out social commentary here.
I would be open to calling it social commentary if it wasn't for the female relationships. I think the female relationships is what solidifies it for me that this is not a feminist movie.
Exactly. And honestly, there are glimmers, but then the female relationships are such a drag. Like, the writer, you're women. Like, you know how women interact. Like, I think it's probably very unfair, my level of frustration with this, but I love watching movies and TV shows. Obviously, we just spent 17 years discussing Heartstopper, which has great friendships and relationships in it. Because friendships and relationships, especially for people in like high school and stuff, are foundational to who you are. And if you lack those relationships, that's also foundational to who you are. If you're like a loner type of person, that affects you for I think for like a lot of your life. And these kind of like haphazard representations of those relationships, like we're not really putting importance on friendships, female friendships. The boys all have friends. The boys are cool. No female friendships. It's like that is like literally not how high school works.
I mean, Patrick didn't really have a friend.
No, but him and Cameron and Michael, they get on.
I mean, yeah, they buddied up afterwards, but you know, and I think another one of my frustrations with this movie is like the lack of backstory for Patrick and lack of motivation for Patrick. I think that this could have really benefited by giving him a motive for taking some douchebag's money to date Kat. After realizing that he genuinely liked Kat.
Giving him stakes.
Right. What are the stakes? Why are you taking this shitty bet? Why are you taking payment to date someone that you genuinely like already? Right? Why are you dishonoring her in that way? Like, so that every time I see this, that is one question that I'm asking myself, like, what do you need the money for? He could have easily said no and then continued to date her on his own. So that kind of like, it felt a little empty there. And on the subject of feminism and misogyny, like other ways that this story continues to push this theme of feminism versus misogyny in this movie is obviously with Kat, right? You know, she's the big outward feminist, right? And then we have her sister, who's supposed to be like her complete opposite. She's not outwardly advertising feminism, right? But her whole arc through the movie is about getting to make her own choices and trying to stand up for herself when she feels her choices are being policed by both her father and her feminist sister, right? So there's this interesting dynamic between them where even a self-proclaimed feminist is trying to limit another woman's choices because she disagrees with the choices that she wants to make. So
you're the wrong kind.
You're the
feminist person,
right? You're not the feminist, right? You get what I'm saying? Like that's a different way of exercising feminism. Anyway, and another thing that I also did enjoy about this movie, or that I appreciated about this movie, is that unlike many rom-coms, unlike many other teen movies, ultimately the plot of this one doesn't rely on anybody having to change who they are or becoming pretty or becoming desirable. There's no makeover. Nobody needs to change exactly who they were at the beginning of the movie. And I think you kind of mentioned this earlier as maybe like a flaw. Like, what happened? What's the arc? Who changed? Nobody changed. I kind of appreciated that in the sense that nobody needed to be different to be appreciated. It just shows you that once the main characters felt seen by another person, that was enough. They don't need to change who they are to become desirable. And also, neither of the main characters needed to be popular or are even considered popular. They're well known, right, for their like characteristics, which you learn are just people's perceptions imposed on them. And the movie is more about learning who they are as they start to like each other, like who they are with their guard down. Yeah, so those are my final thoughts.
They're very good thoughts. As always,
they're very good thoughts.
They are very good thoughts. As always,
thoughts, thank you.
I enter the movie loud and upset. And I exit the movie a little quieter and a little less upset because you're here to make it better for me. Like,
such an idiot.
but it's true. Yeah, like I feel like I understand movies better because you talk to me about them. And that's why we're
we
here.
break it down.
Dog, I'm still upset about lots of stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Especially we just came off of Heartstopper, which is arguably a very, very different vehicle, a whole different type of story. But I find Heartstopper so well written. I was just going to say it's hard to go from something so well written to something that feels more haphazard, less buttoned up.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so glaring. If we had gone from like other 90s rom-com to like this, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's fucking go. But the contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. And the contrast of going from like a modern 2024 dynamic where that feels so inclusive and so welcoming and so wholesome to
uplifting.
Uplifting, and then come to 10 Things I Hate About You, and you know, and now we're faced with misogyny and we're attacking women and the sexism of it all, the patriarchy of it all. It's definitely a stark shift. But with all that said, I will watch this movie every time. I will watch this movie every time it's on. I will laugh at the stupid ass jokes. I will chuckle every time Mrs. Percy changes member to bratwurst.
Oh my God.
It is ridiculous.
Yes. If I'm at your house and you have this on in the background as you're doing dishes, I'm going to sit and watch it. But am I going to endeavor to put this on because I love it so much? Probably not.
Yeah. No, it's not a comfort film for me.
No, it's not for me either. It makes me a little too angry.
But I can see how it is a comfort film for many because I feel like it's just filled with nostalgia and it does have a lot of great scenes.
Some of the lines, absolute bangers.
Yes,
a
absolutely.
lot of charm, a lot of charisma from all the characters.
If you're a Heath Ledger fan, I can see you continuing to revisit this movie to see his charm because he is so charming in this movie. And he does such a good job of captivating the audience, I feel like, with minimal effort. Again, I'll go back to what I said in the beginning. This movie stands because of its nostalgia and because of Heath Ledger and Julia Stiles.
It's an iconic start. I also want to say, like, I genuinely miss when you could go to the movies and watch just like a kind of like mid-budget rom-com with fresh actors, and that shit is number 2 at the box office behind The Matrix. Like, holy shit, you know?
Can you imagine?
We were a proper country. No, I'm joking, but I'm fucking kidding.
It's before the yuppies started making all the
greed
money.
Is good. No, it's before fucking private equity firms started trying to destroy our fucking lives. But yeah, like, it's absolutely of a time. Obviously, this movie would not exist in a similar capacity today. I totally get that. Like, I'm not trying to 100% recontextualize this movie in 2024 or 2025 rather. Like, I know that that's like a fool's errand. It's a nonsensical endeavor. But as a modern viewer, I am going to watch it with my modern biases, which I think is why I'm like so many of these things take me back. If I had grown up loving this movie the way so many people do, if I had watched it for the first time when I was 10, you wouldn't be able to tell me shit. Like, I would be watching this every other fucking Saturday night, just having it on. It would just be a comfort movie for me. I think if I had seen it when I was much younger, watching it now changes that.
All right, sister. So to wrap this up, as we usually do,
let's go.
Here we can't pick book or movie. This is
well
actually we can.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say neither.
None, neither.
Maybe the movie.
Obviously, between Shakespeare's original work and the movie adaptation of 10 Things I Hate About You, I will absolutely pick 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah.
Will your significant other watch this with you?
He sure did. He watched it with me twice.
What do you think about it?
He enjoyed it. The first time we watched it, we laughed through it. It was definitely funny. The second time, as I kept pausing it and being like, are you kidding? He was like, yeah. He wasn't taking it as seriously, like it wasn't as deep, but he was just like, yeah. Didn't age great.
So a while back, for some reason, It was on. I don't know if my daughter asked me about it. It was something. Point is, I'm like, okay, let's put it on and see. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember liking this movie. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, and it's PG-13. I'm sure it'll be fine. No. No. We were uncomfortable. Obviously, it had been a long time since I had seen it. As I'm watching it, I'm then starting to remember stuff that might come up like, oh, okay. When I remembered the detention scene was going to come up, I was like, okay, yeah, no. Yeah, this isn't going to, I don't think we're going to finish watching this. Yeah, no. I can't say that I want my 12-year-old seeing the heroine of a movie flashing their sports coach. That's not funny. So no, I would not watch this with my significant other. Mm-hmm. My other significant other,
me,
which is my husband.
Just kidding.
No.
I'm fine. I'm not upset. That would be weird.
My other significant other, my husband, did sit and watch this with me and was like, wow, this isn't as good as I remember. And I was like, yep, nope. So yeah. Generational trauma?
Misogyny.
Not liking women.
That'll do it.
Do they stay together?
No.
They don't stay together. They break up. They break up in college. She goes to Sarah Lawrence. He doesn't go to New York.
They break up at the end of the summer. Do Cameron and Bianca stay together? I mean, I think Cameron and Bianca stay together for as long as Bianca's in high school.
Through high school,
He's like obsessed with her. And then as soon as she graduates, it's coitance, baby.
She's like, I want to know who I am by myself.
I'm going to broaden my horizons.
We've outgrown each other, I think, is how that relationship would end. Last question. On a scale from 1 to ardently admire and love.
On a scale of 1 to 10 things I hate about you. How many things do you hate? On a scale of 1 to ardently admire and love. Well, I think me as a teenager, this is a smooth 7. Easy on the brain, easy to watch, funny moments. Heath Ledger's cute. Iconic moments like the poem reading, like the singing in the stadium. They have a marching band. Soft spot for that. I'm 31 though. And for my 31-year-old self, I wouldn't even necessarily call it like, this is a bad movie. It's a Hallmark movie. No, this is like a 5 to me, or a 4.
Okay.
Yeah, which is, I think that's the lowest I've given a movie.
That is the lowest you have given a movie.
Because I think Practical Magic, I gave it like a 5.5. So
this is worse than Practical Magic.
No. It's not worse than Practical Magic, but they're like on par. I think they're both. I'm gonna amend Practical. I think they're both like 5.5s.
So you're amending your 4 to a 5.5. We've upgraded your rating. Okay,
because I'm like, it's not worse than Practical Magic. I'll watch this before I watch Practical Magic again.
Okay, I feel you. I would watch Practical Magic again too. Okay, if I don't know, are you changing it again?
I'm just saying 5. I'm saying 5. I think I ended up giving Practical Magic a 6 because you sweet talked to me about sisterhood or whatever. It's like a 5. Both of them are 5s. Go on.
I just be out here just tricking you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. So
I'll be making you second guess shit.
Absolutely. I'm incredibly impressionable. You know this.
Oh no. Oh my God. I think I would have to give this movie a 7. 6.5, 7.
Okay.
I had a good time watching it if I ignore the shit that bothers me. So Heath Ledger bumps it up to a 7 for me. I think I would genuinely give this movie a 6. Heath Ledger makes it a 7. He brings it up a whole point.
That's a little too high for me, but okay. I accept.
Yeah, I think I do end at a 7.
Yeah. No, I definitely ended a 5. I will say, like, the end, elite. That, like, quick music video moment where, like, the band's at the top of the... Girl, it's glamorous. I fucking love that.
So, sisters, that is our recap and review of 10 things I hate about you. Let us know what you think. Please sound off in the comments if you're listening on Spotify, or DM us, hit us up on IG. We would love to hear your thoughts. Argue with us. What do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Is this engagement bait that I'm so mad at this movie? I don't know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Be gentle.
Nadhya now
I'm
wants
a baby.
To be gentle. Now
I'm a little marshmallow. I rip apart the movie and then I'm like, be nice to me. No, one thing I will say is our listeners are generally so respectful and kind.
No, awesome.
And the best listeners ever. So I know even if they do disagree with me, they will be fucking cool about it.
So,
but you know what? If you got to be mean, be a little mean. It's fine.
Hey, listen, I appreciate honesty. Honesty is the best policy for me. So if you real mad, be real mad. So sisters, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for making it through this critique of 10 things I hate about you. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, please leave a review anywhere you get your podcasts. Come and find us on Instagram at Sis Flicks Podcast. Shoot us an email at sisflickspodcast@gmail.com. And let us know what you think about this episode, about anything. And let us know if you have any suggestions or movie requests for us to cover in the future.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Evil as plain as the scar on his face. Deception and outrage. I'm dead. Disgrace for shame. He asked for trouble the moment he came. Also, that is a Shakespeare adaptation.
Hell yeah. That's right.
So we're bringing it all together.